The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all. I decided last second I kind of hate the theme I created last year for this, so fucking I'm just using the original.
You are okay. So what I'm actually hearing from you is you're gonna spend another sessions in the near future trying to create the theme you actually want for the show.
Well, I don't really do the IndySiders anymore with Harry, much to his chagrin. I don't really want to work more than I'm Roman Reigns. I don't want to work more than 2 nights a week, and the occasional Sunday with Jesse and Jesse only. So if I work with Harry, now I got to sneak in the occasional Wednesday, and it's not really worth my time or effort. I offered him to come on the show tonight. He's at Raw in Las Vegas, so I was like, all right, and I'm not. So I'm sitting here with a theme with the actual name of the podcast on it, and I'm like, I might as well use that instead of the other one, because the other one was just kind of me and you looking like Triple H and Shawn Michaels and DX. Actually, it looks more like me. A very cartoonish Doonesbury looking version of me with, a Doonesbury version looking Triple H. Like, nah. So I figured, you know what? This is a very special episode of the IndySiders featuring Robert Winfrey filling in for Harry Broadhurst. Ta-da!
Yep, we're super special over here.
This is actually Damn You Hollywood the Wrestling Edition. That's what this really is.
That's how it's kind of gonna go down, because if all you wanted was a discussion of the work rate and the matches, we're not the show. We're going to give you that. Then we're going to talk about the economics. Then we're going to talk about the fallout. Then we're going to talk about how somehow across boxing, MMA, and pro wrestling, the letters TKO have become toxified.
Funny you should mention that. I asked you before the show if you could just give me a few minutes to avail myself of some thoughts and feelings. Years ago, when I would watch boxing on ESPN, and I just started getting back into watching boxing. Like, my kids were young. I was kind of making a point of trying to catch up with watching boxing because I had a DVR, I had premium cable. So this is like 2011, 2013, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, somewhere in that period. I was home a lot, and I had young kids. So I wanted to watch more boxing. And I was tuning into whatever, I think it's Friday Night Fights that was on ESPN. And the first thing I noticed about the presentation on ESPN of Friday Night Fights was there was nothing that told you it was Friday Night Fights. What it did tell you was that they were sponsored by Corona. The entire mat was the Corona label.
Big old logo right in the middle.
And I remember, like, the early days of MMA before the Reebok deal, where even Dennis Hallman and his banana sack had an advertisement on it, such as it was. Like, every fighter, their shorts were just covered in ads. Boxers too. If you're Floyd, if you're Floyd Mayweather, you can afford no advertisements on your shorts, and you can walk in big furry shorts.
If you're Floyd, you sell space for one advertiser.
I think in whatever one I'm thinking of where he had the furry shorts on, I don't even think there was one.
I'm just saying, but Floyd's whole thing was, okay, I'm not going to sell every square inch of my shorts, right, but Hubolt or Rolex or a big brand can have a spot and one spot.
And I was thinking about, I think that there was like, is it like an SNL skit or something, some other thing, some comedy bit that I saw where the entire screen, and I think that they were talking about cable news at the time, but the entire screen had graphics on it. Like the people talking were buried in like ads and tickers and everything. And then the joke was that television had become so busy with graphics and ads that whatever it was you were showing became like a distant issue. The thing was all the other hoopla they were throwing at you. And, some of this, like if you watch modern boxing now, you get the occasional person who walks out there and, in OnlyFans is on their stuff. I'm seeing very few of the stock car racer as a person type of deal, but there's still a little bit of that. They're still selling ad space on different things. I'll tell you a quick story. When I worked for XPW and we were trying to get a television deal, they were like, we want to we want to make sure that if we're going to do this, that we can advertise on different things. What if their suggestion was putting like an advertisement on a God, the thing that you put on top of a table, the blanket. Why am
Tablecloth.
Thank you, Jesus Christ. Sorry. Here's to you. Tablecloth. They wanted to put their logo on the tablecloth and put the tablecloth on the table. Look, I don't want to get into a whole thing about the logic of tables in wrestling, but if there's a tablecloth on it, it really does, especially with an ad, it would really, violate the idea of this even being even close to a real thing. It was a much more brighter way of saying that. Tired.
Well, and yet nowadays, every table you pull out on WWE TV has a Slim Jim logo on each.
Yeah, don't get ahead of me. So I'm watching WrestleMania this weekend, and look, I'm not like the rest of you marks. I'm just
hi, Mark.
I'm a Mark. I'm not the Marks. I enjoy watching wrestling as a thing to do with my children. I enjoy watching wrestling because I'm 50 and I've been watching this since 1987-ish. It's one of the few constants in my life. But I don't get myself caught up in work rate, and I don't get myself caught up in the day-to-day minutia of what is pro wrestling. That was kind of Harry's deal. That's why we worked well together. I know what I like. I don't know art, but I know what I like. And I know that as long as it's a passable product and I get to enjoy it with my kids, I'm going to have a good night, no matter how bad the show might actually be. What was different about WrestleMania for me, and this is really what I wanted to talk about before we got into the show proper, was just how bland, despite the jingling keys, this presentation has become. I used to say, I wish boxing and MMA took more notes from the WWE because it would be a more interesting presentation. And to some degree, like DAZN did, just start doing big screens, and then the guys are walking out by themselves, and then their team comes out later.
There's some boxers who get the presentation. The UFC hates it because the UFC hates fun.
Yeah, but I definitely saw a lot of the WWE leaking into boxing. The needle has gone too far to the other side. What I saw over the weekend, where there were so many graphics on the thing, if you listen to our show on the Radulich Broadcasting Network on Spreaker in its traditional audio form as an actual podcast, you get, and I'm sorry for this, folks, you get an advertisement about every 30 to 45 seconds now. It is upsetting for a lot of people, but we either have no ads or we have to have ads every minute and 30 seconds or so. But I remember like driving to New Orleans, and because it's the same ad over and over and over again, my kids and I had memorized the Chumba Casino ad. And we would all take great pleasure in yelling out, "Watch out, it's a gator!" Yelling that as we're driving through New Orleans is also fun. Just pointing at random things, going, "Watch out, it's a gator."
One of these days in the near future, we're going to have the new Nuremberg trials for everyone in the gambling industry for what they've done to us.
So, and I think this is where it hit me, is I kept seeing in the top left-hand corner a imprint ad, a burned-into screen ad for Chumba Casino. They did one for Riyadh season, Chumba Casino, and there was a bunch of other ones. And I was just like, the fuck are we doing here? There was a time where the center graphic on the ring apron was the name of the event. I used to like that sort of thing, as opposed to the way Strikeforce did it, which was in the middle was Rockstar Energy Drink, which one would think that was the name of the product.
Yeah, UFC does that now. If you've watched any of their events, like they just sell every square inch of the canvas.
The canvas for I think night 1 and night 2 was the General Auto Insurance.
Yeah.
And you keep saying, "Oh, they sell." It was all over this one. Every square inch, there was an ad. On the TV, there was an ad. Every match was brought to you, more on this later, by a different company. They would change the electronic ring apron to each one. It would be the center mass.
You didn't get half the entrances because they were airing commercials.
And then when they pulled out the tables, which again, you really don't want to break the logic of what's happening here. These two men or women are so mad at each other. They're in such a lather that they're pulling out chairs to put each other through them. They're so mad that the tables had advertisements on them. Why not just have a guy who's dressed in all Slim Jim just come out and hand them the table if you're going to do that? If you're going to credulity, that's the word I was looking for. We're going to break credulity this way.
There was I forget which one it was, but there was a Money in the Bank in the last couple of years where the ladder, one of the ladders, just one of the ladders, was sponsored by Fireball.
I don't
so
doubt.
all the other ladders looked normal. And it just meant nobody bought anybody climbing a ladder that wasn't the branded ladder. Because, of course, the branded ladder is what you're going to use when you actually win.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying, and people listening to this is like, why is he going on about this? Like, why does he care so much the ads? Because here's the thing. It was made very apparent to me watching WrestleMania Night 1 and 2, WrestleMania 42, that this company doesn't give a shit about the fans but only one way. In the same way that the horror director Alfred Hitchcock, in the same way that Alfred Hitchcock cared about his cast, whom he referred to as human furniture. They're not interested in your money. They're interested in making sure there is a body in a seat, making the presentation look pretty, and that they can sell stuff to. While you're there, they can sell you marked up cheeseburgers and steaks and nachos and beer. They don't, outside of that, they don't care. And so long as they can fill 50 to 80,000 seats, depending on which stadium you're in, as long as there's an ass there and the 700 billion people in the world, they're not really interested in anything else, which means they don't have to put on a coherent product either. So this whole thing stopped feeling to me like a annual special wrestling event and more of a marketing opportunity. Like, this felt like going to the Ellen show or Oprah, like a live taping of something. That's not how WrestleMania should feel. And here's the thing. This will be the last thing I say, and then you give your comment. We can get onto the matches. I'm sure people don't want to hear me for 2 hours talk about this.
If you do want to hear Mark for 2 hours talk about this, leave a comment.
Just wait for my TikTok in a few days. WrestleMania has never not felt special until this year. Every year felt special in some way. It was something I looked forward to. When I think about, and I hate to be this guy, but when I think about the WrestleMania between 14 and 15, you're going, there is no. From 14 to 15, the storylines, the first year Austin had the title, and I'm like, I'm not the world's biggest Attitude Era fan either. But my God, from
plenty
the day,
of problems with that time period, and I don't mean like, oh no, my social mores of contemporary are offended by. Like, no, there's just some stuff that's bad.
They called WrestleMania 14 X-rated for a variety of reasons. You know what WrestleMania 15 was called? The Rage and Climax. We were building a story from the day after WrestleMania 14 to the day of WrestleMania 15, and I can tell you everything that happened in Austin's entire storyline that year. I couldn't do that on my children's life for this year. And it's not because I don't watch the product, because the storylines, you have to understand, there used to be, even though there were a lot of twists and turns along the way, a year-long story that builds into WrestleMania. This year, there wasn't. This year, felt like this was just the springtime event because we have to have an event. And that's all it felt like. And like I said, when you combine that with the overabundance of ads that didn't in any way match the product, they were just it's the companies that bought the ad space. That's it. And then you combine that with the almost every match there were like less than 10 minutes of wrestling, plus the ads they were showing in between, plus all of the nonsense and I'm not counting the Danhausen skit because they always do a skit every year. I miss Pete Rose.
They did
that aside.
If you want to understand something about this,
Mm-hmm.
for the people in attendance, like during a wrestler's entrance on the big screens that broadcast to everybody, right? They weren't showing the entrances; they were showing Wingstop commercials.
Yeah, sure.
You're paid in attendance in a seat for a live event, and they're showing you ads.
Yeah. What I'm trying to get at in a very, I guess, long-winded way is how unimportant professional wrestling was at this supposed professional wrestling event. Nothing has ever taken me out of wrestling more than that. And that includes the time we've killed people. Your thoughts, Robert? Even though you interrupted me 27 times.
Look, we had small conversations there. I tried not to immediately interrupt you for the sake of my own monologue.
Maybe when I'm dead, I can complete a thought.
Yeah, we're gonna get into the specifics, so I'll save a lot of my like major hangups for the end of it. But the build to this WrestleMania was bad. There were, I think, 2 matches that had genuine like good builds, and 2.5. And neither of those actually delivered on the night because neither of them were allowed to. So yeah, it was a very poor build, which is not a guarantee that the actual Mania sucks. To be very clear, too many people get locked into the build. Hey, you guys want to have a fun experience? Go back and rewatch the like 4 weeks of the last build to WrestleMania 17. It's all over the place. There's a handful of matches on that card that get made in the 2 weeks before the event. Angle and Benoit was a last minute addition. Taker and Triple H was a last minute addition. I mean, Rock only won the belt to challenge Austin the pay-per-view before, so you got like 3 weeks for that. It was Rock and Austin, so we don't need 8 weeks. But the actual build to WrestleMania 17 was iffy. And then, 17 is widely regarded as one of the very best.
Also, in the week leading up to WrestleMania, WCW goes out of business.
That too.
Creating a buttload of speculation. By the way, just to address Chauncey Billings over here, I don't have the hang-ups about Hogan. The rest of you do. I don't care.
Much like you, Mark, I don't have a problem with Hulk Hogan in the sort of like generalized sense.
Mm-hmm.
I will say part of the thing being brought up there is that commercial ran for more total airtime than at least 4 of the matches on night 1.
All right. Are you ready to get into the first match here?
Sure. Let's kick this pig.
All righty. Night 1, WrestleMania, LA Knight and the Usos versus Logan Paul, Austin Theory, and I Show Speed. Brought to you by YouTube. Because eventually all of this just turns into content anyway. Your thoughts, Robert?
The match goes 7 minutes. This is a dud. The Usos have regressed. The 1D they sort of hit on Logan at the end of this was nowhere near being. Dude, Jey Uso post-world title run has been all over the place, like execution-wise. Jimmy is just a spare and always has been.
Mm-hmm.
LA Knight deserves better.
Mm-hmm.
I saw this on Twitter. I forget who said it, but I'm going to quote it because it's true. Logan Paul and Austin Theory look like a tag team that had a lot of dark matches in 2001, then got released because of the influx of talent from the acquisition of WCW. I Show Speed is there because YouTube engagement. And in fairness, the splash to Logan Paul after the match through the table was kind of cool. But who cares? Nothing about this mattered. Nothing about this was interesting.
Can I give am I allowed to give my opinion as a non-wrestling fan, as just a dad who watched it with his kids? Am I
I'm
allowed to
sh-
do that?
I'm sure they had a good time.
Oh no, I'm asking you
Yes,
because
yeah,
if I
of course
start
you
to
are.
do
Of
that,
course you are.
and if I start to do that, and you run to Tampa to beat me to death because I'm only supposed to attack this as a
No, no,
critic,
no.
we're gonna have a problem.
Look, there's any number of ways you can approach all of this.
Okay, well, I'm approaching this entire now that my rant at the beginning is out of the way for TikTok purposes. I'm going to be talking about the rest of this until we get to CM Punk versus Roman Reigns as just a dad who watched this with his kids. So finish up your
Okay.
point, and then I'll jump into mine.
Yeah, the entire Vision angle has unfortunately suffered just pothole after pothole after pothole. Like, oh, Seth Rollins is going to team up with Paul Heyman, and he'll bring in Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, and this will be a new super group that no one asked for, but okay, because we like Braun Breaker. And then Seth Rollins tears his shoulder up doing a stupid coast-to-coast headbutt in a match with Cody Rhodes in Saudi Arabia. So how do we fix this? Because now Seth's going to be out. The Vision turns on him, which they were going to do eventually, but they really hotshot it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then then we have a masked man who's associated with the Vision show up in several events. Who is the masked man? This is Triple H's only idea, by the way. Masked man. Well, who is it? No, it's Austin Theory. What a terrible choice. But okay, we're giving Austin Theory another try. And then Bronson Reed goes down with injury. Again. What do? We need another guy. Well, Logan Paul, because why not? Then, okay, Seth Rollins makes his return as a masked man, because of course he did. But it's Seth Rollins. And now, the big deal is him and Braun Breaker. So again, now Bronson Reed's out, Logan Paul's in, and then Braun Breaker suffers a hernia like 3 weeks ago and it barely makes it back in time to do his stupid running spear that we'll get to in a minute. And all of that leads to this whole group being dead in the water for months now, but we're still going forward because whatever. The match, again, it's a dud. It's slow for a 7-minute match. It's entirely paint by numbers. Everyone's just phoning it in. And ultimately, a goof like I Show Speed being here is harmless. So I'm not like complaining about the sanctity of everything here. I just don't think it worked all that well, apart from a 2-minute segment that's going to go on YouTube and they're going to really hope gets a lot of views.
I am old. My children are young.
Like when the world was new?
So it's fun to have moments where my old world bleeds into their young world. So we had great fun talking about I Show Speed. And again, my kids and I are like the Waldorf and Statler of family entertainment. We just the three of us dare just mock things relentlessly. So the whole time we are making fun of this match. And what is it in the theaters where you're like hooting at the screen and whatnot? There's a word for it. It's escaping. All the words are escaping me tonight. When you think of it, just shout it at me. But
I don't know what it is for theater. I mean, you could try heckling, but that's a live
that's the one.
performance.
Yes, the heckling. So my kids and I love to heckle things that we watch, especially pro wrestling, and they're good hecklers. I've trained them well. So we're heckling this match because that's what it deserved. But the best part of it was I couldn't get I Show Speed's name right because I don't know who the fuck this guy is, and I made sure I leaned into every "I'm old, I don't know what this is" joke there was, and my kids think that's a hoot. So I'm watching this, and I'm watching, what is essentially a stunt show masquerading as a pro wrestling match as best it could. And it was over before it even began. And like I said, the only thing I remember about it, and it's kind of just because you reminded me of it, was I Showed Speed splash at the end. My kids thought it was fun. My kids were into my kids who know who Logan Paul is and hate him, and they know who I Show Speed is.
Logan Paul. It's why he's great. It's why he's a great professional wrestler. Everybody hates him.
They could give a fuck less about the Usos. I could give a fuck less about the Usos, and they don't know who LA Knight is or care. And yes, LA Knight deserves better. So my thoughts on that match. I told you, I'm not. Look, this is what I want to say before we move on. If the WWE can't take their product seriously. I'm not going to either. However, I did like the next match. Jacob Fatu in an unsanctioned brawl with Drew McIntyre, brought to you by Home Depot for all your tables, tools, and workplace safety violations. I like Jacob Fatu. I'm glad he won this match. My ex-wife used to call Drew McIntyre her hall pass, so I was happy to see him lose. The kids had a question: Isn't he normally a good guy? Why is he a bad guy now? And I said, you haven't been watching lately.
Drew's been a heel for a while now.
Yeah. Again, none of us watch regularly. Again, short match. They didn't get enough time to really do a whole lot with this, but they did the best with what they had. Jacob Fatu, beating the piss out of Drew McIntyre. My only issue with this is I was talking to my kids about this. There couldn't be blood because we were doing blood at the end, and we're only going to do blood once, kind of like Daffy Duck's trick. But this needed blood. This needed to be later in the night. This needed to go longer, and it's like, how do you take a violent, unsanctioned brawl and make it completely gutless? This is how you do it. Like, they're both capable of more. This should have been more. This was a child's version of a no holds barred match. The only last thing I'm going to say is, I know Drew's going away for a while.
He is going to be. He's been cast in the new Highlander movie.
Yeah, so Drew's going away to do Highlander for a while. They used to stretch your guys for that sort of thing.
It does make me wonder if either on Raw or on SmackDown, there's not going to be some other angle to actually write him off, because this wasn't it.
Well, that's been my problem with wrestling for a while. Is you should do big things on big shows and save your maintenance stuff for your maintenance shows. And the WWE's philosophy is, fuck you on the big shows, and we'll do everything on the maintenance shows, making it less and less interesting to watch the big shows. Your thoughts?
This is 3 stars, slightly generous 3. Look, these two actually had a pretty decent build to this match. They've been circling each other for a while. Fatu's kind of the reason Drew won the WWE title from Cody Rhodes in Germany in a 3 Stages of Hell match. Because Fatu's pissed at Drew, and Cody was stupid. That the booking at the end of that match actually made Cody look like the biggest moron possible. It was shocking. But so Drew kind of chased Cody and Fatu kind of circled around Drew when Drew was champion. Cody and Fatu had a little bit of an interaction, and then Cody wins the belt back in no small part because Fatu shows up to stop Drew from cheating. Drew goes to hit Cody with a chair while the ref's down. Fatu takes the chair away, points and laughs. Drew turns into a crossroads. That's it. Then Drew gets all pissed at Fatu because you've taken everything from me. You're the reason my life sucks. I should have been going into WrestleMania as champion, but you criminal, you. And they've brawled multiple times. They've fallen off of high places together. Like, the build is better than this match.
Yeah, which I really hate. Because again, why should I bother with WrestleMania other than it's a thing to do with my kids if the WWE treats it the exact same that I'm thinking and saying?
The only good thing about this match was Drew having PTSD about the toolbox. Because that's what CM Punk, tore him open with in their Hell in a Cell match. So that was fun. Fatu gets a win. We need to do something more with Jacob Fatu. I know he was written off for a while ago, briefly, because he had some kind of a non-wrestling related dental injury that he had to get fixed. But Fatu's kind of awesome. Happy to see him back. Good win.
Did Fatu and Roman Reigns ever have a proper feud?
No. They interacted briefly a few times during the Bloodline B team and Roman getting his group back together. But Fatu, it was very, very clear very, very quickly that Fatu was bigger and better than everyone else in that godforsaken miasma of talent that is Solo Sikoa's mid-card forever team.
So here's my thought. I know that the summer is Obafemi and Gunther as Roman Reigns' opponents, but let's get if not for next year's WrestleMania, which is probably a long shot, but let's get Jacob Fatu in there with Roman once or twice. Like that to me looks like a great top of the card match.
Yeah, except Fatu's on SmackDown, and please don't take anything more away from me. That show's already interminable. I need the Samoan werewolf there to tear things apart on occasion.
Okay, Robert, I'm everyone warp your world around Robert. It's the only way things work. All right.
Look, if you're gonna take Jacob Fatu, you have to give me something else that's equally good. That's all I'm asking for.
We'll negotiate later.
So yeah, again, 3 stars if you're feeling a little bit generous. The problem is like this needed a real blow off, and this is just every PG era Extreme Rules match you ever saw.
Yep. All right. The women's tag title fatal 4-way brought to you by DoorDash. 4 teams enter. Nobody ordered this, and it still shows up. Ugh.
Yeah, the reason Charlotte Flair looks the way she does is Nia Jax keeps stealing her food. Yes, that is an insult. I'm body shaming both of them at the same time.
Wonderful. I like it when you turn into me. Listen, the most interesting thing about this that I can even recall are my daughter's comments about everyone's outfits. Watch wrestling with girls and women. It's fascinating the things they pick up on.
Let us all remember that this is also why you should not try and aim wrestling at girls and women. If they like it, they'll come to what it is. Don't try to change it for them.
But yeah, she was really into. She loves it. My daughter loves Alexa Bliss, but she was especially interested in her dark butterfly costume. And then when Charlotte came out in the Princess Shira of Power version of the same thing, she was all aflutter. She was also asking like, what the hell happened to Bayley, and why couldn't Bayley make it as the hugger as she was in NXT? That was a long conversation during that match.
That was also a long time ago. Wait, so you mean the 34-year-old woman didn't want to be wearing a side ponytail and bright colors and running around hugging kids forever? Like Bayley's heel turn was one of the best things she ever did.
Oh yeah, like that I can't argue with you at all. The initial heel turn, of course, like everything else, it turned to crap. But the initial heel turn was fan-fucking-tastic.
Even her first 4 months as a heel.
I forget what happened to Paige. Was it a mental thing with her or another?
She broke her neck.
Did she?
They tried to keep her around for a bit in a non-wrestling role that didn't
she was
quite
like the
work.
SmackDown manager, wasn't she, or some shit?
Something like that. Yeah, that didn't work out. She left. She rehabbed. She wanted to wrestle again. She got into shape. She showed up in AEW for a little bit. Was their champion briefly. Again, she had some stuff that she did there. Then she left there. And now she's back here.
Okay.
And Paige replaces Nikki Bella in the Bella Twins because Nikki suffered an ankle injury a couple of weeks ago.
We put the Bellas in the Hall of Fame. Why do we keep doing this?
I don't know, because they suck. They're not good.
Why would we bother putting them in the Hall of Fame then if we're going to just keep having them show up at WrestleMania or actively part of the roster in the case of Nikki Bella?
Well, Brie too. Brie returned at the Rumble.
Has she wrestled since the Rumble?
Yeah, she's been in the tag feud. She's been teaming with Nikki for weeks, going after the women's tag team championships.
All women look the same to me. Listen, and then we had, who we haven't talked about yet? Oh, yes. The irresistible forces of Nia Jax and Lash Legend. Yeah, look, the fact that we're talking about everything but the wrestling in this match tells you how much I was paying attention to the wrestling in this match.
The match goes 8.5 minutes. Didn't need that much. This is the only match I think on this card that should have been shorter. Wasn't good. Botchy as heck. And of course, Paige wins because the Bellas were going to win anyway. Because why in the world would anybody care about narrative cohesion, a team that's actually like trying to justify things in a narratively cathartic fashion? That would be Bayley and Lyra. Why care about a team that's worked very hard to solidify themselves as a genuine team in a division that is largely composed of women thrown together between singles runs and Bliss and Charlotte? And getting the belts off the irresistible forces is fine, but I can't imagine working for this company, being there week in, week out, putting in the work, caring about my art form, and to just only and repeatedly be shoved aside, upstaged, and essentially disrespected in favor of a return that might pop a few views on YouTube. It's pathetic.
I can't remember which law this is or when it happened, but it's the law that says companies can be treated like people and people treated like companies. And it was shortly thereafter that everyone figured out that if you are in a relationship with a company, that company is a narcissist, which is the only explanation I fucking have for why this company treats people the way that it does. It embarrasses legends. I mean, there are some things about some of these wrestlers to where in some cases like you get what's coming to you, but for the most part this is a company where by the only reason why anyone goes to it is because despite the fact the Sex Pest doesn't run it anymore, it's still it's the biggest company in the world. It pays the best for the most part, but you have to deal with an unending amount of abuse, and people are willing to make that trade-off. And if you're Bailey, the Daniel Bryan of women, where you're nothing but you're nothing but loyal to this company, and they treat you like shit. I have no other explanation for it than, that's the way people are, and that's the way they are trauma bonded together, companies and people. I like this comment. Wrestling is a sport for homosexuals. Thank you for adding to the intellectual part of this discussion.
It's not a sport.
Anyway, next one.
Oh, look, another 8-minute match.
Yes, the blood feud between Becky Lynch and AJ Lee. Brought to you by X, otherwise known as Twitter, where grudges never die and neither do the replies. I guess AJ Lee is done now? Is that what's happening here? Because I had no other explanation for why she went out there with an entire kindergarten class, of which she was about the same size as most of those girls.
It's not like Becky's that much larger.
And then Becky beats her, clean as a sheet in the middle of the ring with no hoopla.
Again, speed running a match. Bear in mind, after Becky's entrance is one of the worst things you'll ever see. She comes out and they have the live band, but because nobody trusts live performance, they're trying to lip sync the singer and is so far out of rhythm and timing that it's comical. If Jim Carrey did this in a movie, you'd think it was over the top.
I missed the DX band.
Maybe they sucked.
Oh, you think everything sucks. Yeah, I hit you with an old classic. Anyway, I mean, AJ Lee was rusty when she came back and did the mixed tag with CM Punk. She looked passable when she beat Becky Lynch for the title. And then, and here's the third part of this ridiculous story, where, again, there's no thought into how we're going to make any of this special or interesting. We're just doing matches. Like, that's my biggest problem with this, and I'll spoiler alert for my thoughts at the end. They didn't do anything to make this WrestleMania any different than Backlash. I'm not good enough to call Backlash. This could have been any in your house. Other than long entrances and the fact they did it in a stadium, and even the fact that they're doing shit in stadiums now is getting played out. The Royal Rumble was in a stadium. They've been doing stadiums for SummerSlam, and now that's 2 fucking nights. Money in the Bank, I think, was in a stadium. Like, if you have too much of something, it becomes less special and interesting, and then it's hard to draw eyeballs to it when it's on the long tail of niche interest. And that's a hell of a thing to do to an institution that's 42 years old. And this isn't me, like, as a wrestling fan, like, crying about, oh, my poor professional wrestling. I'm looking at this like a business person. You've turned your special, seasonal thing into donuts at a Dunkin' Donuts. Yeah, Speaking of which, brought to you by, you can't really see it, but Dunkin' Spiked, for when you want coffee and beer and have to talk wrestling.
I've never done a podcast with inebriated Mark that I've been aware of. It's a different experience. Yeah, look, AJ Lee was rusty when she came back. Her stuff, all the stuff that was her and Punk against Becky and Seth was unbearably self-indulgent. Most of it was overlong. And ultimately, AJ and Becky have good chemistry when they talk to each other. They do not have good in-ring chemistry. There's something that just doesn't click there. Yeah, and apparently AJ retired again, which is fine. Like she got her little comeback and whatever. Like
Yeah.
this was nothing. This was a nothing match. It was a throwaway. It could have been anything. And again, they were done in 8 minutes.
Alrighty. Next up,
The only good match on this entire night, by the way, is up next.
Gunther versus Seth Rollins, brought to you by Black Rifle Coffee. Intense, aggressive, and somebody's definitely passing out. I like this match. I like Gunther. Always have, always will. He's the best wrestler in the company by and large in terms of actual moveset and ability. Seth Rollins doesn't suck. They were able to keep up with each other, do interesting things. This was it's no Angle Benoit, but you're like, if you're a work rate kind of guy, it was the best worked match on the card.
Yeah, this is right around 4 stars, I think, when it's all said and done. It's a 6. They go almost 18 minutes. They sprint for a lot of this. Like they start hot and they never let up. A lot of back and forth. Look, Seth Rollins as a character, as a personality, I find odious. And
this is where me and you differ. Just for the audience's sake, I loved the Monday Night Messiah thing. I have loved Seth Rollins and looking like Liberace out there. All of his he is purposely so everything I hate about Gen Z writ large and made ridiculous, and I think that works for him. My opinion, one man's opinion.
That's fine. Look, again, I find his promos repetitive and tiring because he has 3. It's not even a flow chart. He has 3 sets of how he goes through things, and he never varies. Within 2 sentences, you can tell which segment he's going through because he never breaks them. It's the same thing. As a character, I find him boring, tedious, and he's functionally the same guy he's been for the decade since the Shield broke up. Like there is not much of a difference between who he is now and the guy the Authority got behind. He wears stupid glasses and big shoulders now. That's it. Like that's a costume. That's not a change of character. But Seth Rollins as a worker in the ring, bell to bell, is one of the smoothest wrestlers ever. I mean, I can watch that man work and enjoy every bit of technical execution of what he does. It is tremendous. I just do not care about anything he does because he's a boring, tired, played out character who refuses to change. But him and Gunther but this was supposed to be Seth and Braun. Gunther shows up here for no reason other than Braun Breaker has to have hernia surgery and won't be ready for this.
Do you think a better match would have been Logan Paul and Seth Rollins?
No.
All things considered? Okay.
No. No. That wouldn't even make as much sense. Like, Gunther doesn't make as much sense, but Gunther's logic is, I'm not on Mania. I need to be on Mania. I will attack Seth Rollins because that'll get me there. And in doing so, I will save Paul Heyman from the wrath of Seth Rollins, which he did.
Right. And now Paul Heyman owes him a favor.
And now Paul Heyman owes me one. Look, big picture, Gunther is shoehorned in here because the guy who was supposed to be here isn't here. In universe, they found a believable enough reason for it that I will go along with it because I know Gunther and Seth are going to do good work. So, yeah, they beat the crap out of each other. Loads of chops, power bombs galore, back and forth. I don't even hate that Braun Breaker showed up at the end and influenced the finish. Again, Braun was supposed to be in this spot, couldn't quite make it.
I laughed my ass off because we were all laughing because, like, when Obafemi comes out, he's doing his Obafemi strut, and then about halfway down, he's like, "All right, I'm never gonna get to the ring at this rate," so he fucking regular walks. A lot of people were doing that where they were trying to do their thing or run or whatever down the ramp, and then they realized it's the size of a fucking football field. They can't do it, and so it's. And you have to understand, me and my family heckling this. There's Braun Breaker, clear as fucking day, running down that ramp. And Seth Rollins has to wait an hour and a half for the train to get there. And it's kind of like that Bugs Bunny cartoon.
Braun misses the tackle anyway.
Yeah, and then he has to sell as, the air as it passes by him. But just, you got to hear this. it's like Bugs Bunny with the train, where it's like they pan on Bugs Bunny. He's like, "Oh no!" They pan the train and it's coming, and it's back and forth and back and forth and back and forth for well longer than it took that train to get there. And then again, they keep breaking credulity because it's one thing to run a short distance and hit somebody before you even know what's happening. It's one thing for Seth Rollins to have looked at his watch and waited for the impact of the train.
When Braun Breaker's doing the
Sir Lancelot running in Monty Python bit.
That's also yes, the same thing with Bugs Bunny. We're talking about the same shit. But yeah, it's like, again, if you're not going to put thought into this, why should I?
So yeah, Gunther gets a win. He chokes out Seth Rollins with the sleeper. Good match. Go out of your way to see this one if you're interested. Again, Gunther's always worth watching. I don't care about the story and where it goes, but the actual match, best match on the night. Bear in mind, low bar to clear, but they cleared it.
All right, and then probably the most disappointing match of the night. I read something about this, so I'll begin with that once I read you what it is. Liv Morgan versus Stephanie Vaquer, or if you live in my house, Stephanie Vader. Brought to you by Sephora, because even in chaos, presentation matters. All things considered, this should have been a lot longer. I'm hearing the reason why it wasn't is they're both too banged up to have done a long match, and they didn't want them to get further injured, and at least one of them had a concussion. Now,
yeah, I kind of know when that happened. Like, there's supposed to be tension between Liv and Roxanne Perez in Judgment Day.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a backstage segment where those two are about this far apart, staring at each other after having like exchanged heated words. And then Stephanie Vaquer shoves Liv from behind, and those two bang heads like, I mean, Liv posted like behind the scenes stuff. She had a knot on her head like that. I mean, it was huge.
Looked like a unicorn, huh? So listen, I would have liked a longer match, considering this was kind of a blood feud that needed a longer match. But if they're too banged up, then they're too banged up. It is what it is. But I will tell you, without having known that, my thought was, and I was talking to Harry about this a little bit, after Liv did her best Britney Spears impression.
Liv's entrance is one of the worst things you'll ever see.
My kids and I were laughing hysterically at it. Like, because, again, we couldn't barely hear the song, so we all just started singing Toxic by Britney Spears, which we felt matched. What a dance routine that was. But if you look at her when she's leaning on the ring ropes after she's walked down after that entire dance routine, she looks blown up. She looks like the Ultimate Warrior after he ran down to the ring at WrestleMania 6, where he blew himself up before the match. So we were thinking maybe she was blown up, she was pulling stuff, they had to go short because she couldn't go all the way. But no, they were told go short because we don't want to hurt either of you. Which brings me to my next thought. It's WrestleMania season. I understand there's a lot of wrestling they have to produce between January and March or April, whenever they do this. But if you know you're going to WrestleMania with Liv and Stephanie Vader, then maybe protect them. Don't put them in situations where they're going to bang the fuck out of each other. Or if they're that klutzy, if we're talking, what's her name that was on the tank years ago? Shotzi Blackheart. If she's as klutzy as Shotzi Blackheart, then don't put her in a major WrestleMania match. Like, WrestleMania should be the best people in the company. And granted, most of them should be the best wrestlers in the world. It's the best company in the world by and large. And we just got a bunch of amateurs out there bumble fucking around that ring. And Gunther. Poor Gunther.
Yeah, this match goes 6 minutes and 51 seconds. For comparison, Roman Reigns' entrance in night 2 is longer than this match. I'm not even doing a bit. You can time it out if you feel like it.
Are you including the orchestra performance beforehand?
Yes.
Okay.
The entrance.
Okay.
Yeah, it was longer than this. Dude, The Undertaker would take longer than this to get to the ring on a SmackDown on any given night. Like,
we're skipping ahead here, but the Danhausen midgets carrying out, I think it's the Miz, a la the Undertaker and the Monks. I fucking died laughing. I was like, I'm good. I could have turned WrestleMania off after that, and I kind of wish I had.
The problem is, like, that's the only skit they did was that one. They didn't do anything else. They didn't do any backstage segments. They didn't do any interviews. They didn't do anything else.
We're getting there, Ronnie. We're getting there.
We'll get there. I will console Mark as he sobs. incoherently.
Oh no, I'm not the one that sobbed. My daughter did. My daughter sobbed sympathetically for me.
Fair enough. Okay.
I, however, have died enough inside and have so many people hurt me and betray me that I have nothing left to get sad about.
Okay, so this match again, it's less than 7 minutes.
It's not even a 7-minute match.
It's like 3 minutes of work and then 3 minutes of Judgment Day BS, and then Liv wins. This is a 1.5 star match, and again, if they're both that banged up, like I'm happy to not throw them under the bus and say fire them both.
Mm-hmm.
But man, poor Stephanie Vicaire. She wins the belt from Io Sky in a really good match. Has a 210-day reign as champion. Do you know what she accomplished in that 210 days, Mark?
Mm.
One match with Nikki Bella, which sucked because Nikki sucks. 4 matches with Raquel Rodriguez. This is the best we could do with Stephanie Vicaire.
Like, hopefully
what
she'll
are
be
you
in the
doing?
company a while and she'll have, more Charlotte Flairs and less Nikki Bellas.
Tell that to Tiffany Stratton, who last year beat Charlotte Flair clean as a whistle. This year couldn't even make the card.
Oh, that's right. My daughter loved that last year. She was like, it was like the happiest moment. She fucking hates Charlotte Flair. Flames on the side of her face, and she was just tickled pink when Tiffy Time beat Charlotte Flair. But let's move on.
Yeah, now Tiffany Stratton on the Friday SmackDown before WrestleMania wins a #1 contenders match to challenge Julia for the women's U.S. title at some point in the future.
All right, Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton, brought to you by Prime Hydration, because this main event needed something to keep it alive.
Okay.
Yeah,
We
go
need
ahead.
to talk about how we got here before
We talk about this match.
I wish I had brought more beer with me.
So, Cody Rhodes loses the WWE title to Drew McIntyre in Germany in a 3 stages of hell match. I talked about this earlier. By all accounts, both Cody and Drew said, Drew should win this match at WrestlePalooza. Remember when that happened? Terrible event. But there was a push for Drew to win the title there, hold it for a while, and then drop it before Mania, because they wanted Cody as champion going into Mania. I mean, one of the original thoughts we're going to do Cody and Roman again, because creativity is dead.
I believe I keep saying that.
But didn't happen, so Drew wins on a SmackDown. It's just SmackDown. Holds it for a little bit. He holds it through the Rumble, where he beats the piss out of poor Sami Zayn. And then loses it back to Cody on another SmackDown. A little bit after, in fact, almost immediately after, Randy Orton wins the Elimination Chamber. Randy wins the Chamber in no small part because Drew shows up and costs Cody that match. Because Elimination Chamber matches all have to end with interference these days. The big chamber matches where there's no interference.
Yes,
Every single one.
They're built specifically to keep the interference out.
Every single one of them these days. That door stays open forever and somebody shows up. It's pathetic and repetitive. So, Cody and Randy, these two have history. 20 years worth of history between these two men. And then they do the contract signing, and Randy turns heel. He kicks Cody Rhodes in the dick. He busts him open. He smashes his head into some steel steps with a chair. He does all the heelish things, and the crowd cheer him because no one wants to boo Randy Orton at this point. So the next week, Randy Orton comes out and says, I didn't do all these things for you. I did them for me. And he gets cheered. I gave you my best. I gave away that my legacy is not going to be the smiles I put on people's faces or the handshakes. It's going to be my 15th world title, and the people cheer. And Matt Cardona comes out and goes, Randy, why are you being a dick? So Randy Orton beats the ever-loving crap out of Matt Cardona, and the people cheer. Does that 2 weeks in a row, and the people cheer. They will not boo this man. He goes to his hometown of St. Louis, Missouri, and says, I may reside somewhere in this area, but this is not my home. My home is my family. Those people sitting ringside right there, and the people cheer. Like,
There's nothing he can do to get booed.
So, because this is TKO's company, super agent Ari Emanuel says, my client, Pat McAfee, should be involved in this so I can get a percentage. So Pat McAfee shows up, kicks Cody Rhodes in the dick. Because this is what we do. We just take Cody Rhodes to Dick Kick City. He's got a permanent timeshare there. And says, look, this company sucks. There's still tickets available for WrestleMania when Randy Orton's in the main event. This company has gone soft. I think about all the lapsed fans, all the Attitude Era fans that have been cast aside for bright colors and all this other BS, and the people cheer. Because he's speaking for a segment that actually agrees that the current product kind of sucks. Pat McAfee does wind up getting heat back. He insults CM Punk. He says, I don't want to watch 5'8" guys have an Iron Man match every other week when 6'5", 280-pound, chiseled out of stone, perfect pro wrestler Randy Orton is right here. What are we doing with you midgets? And that gets a little bit of heat. Eventually he gets heat. People start booing him because the reality is it's not that people disagree with what Pat McAfee says. We don't want him in the Cody Rhodes Randy Orton match that has been teased and salivated over by fans at this point for like 5 years. So that's where we are. Randy really wants number 15. He has returned to the dark side to do it. And Pat McAfee's here for reasons. And poor Cody Rhodes, now starting to get booed like he was against John Cena, has to come out and go, you know what? No. How dare you insult the people? Because Pat McAfee comes out and says, okay, all you marks, much like you did. And Cody has to come out and go, names drops a couple of old promoters and says, the advice I got from them was, if you don't understand this, they're not marks, they're your customers, moron. You can only insult your customers so often before they just stop showing up. So Cody has to kind of stand up for the current product, which nobody really likes because nobody really likes what they're doing. And this happened to Cody 2 years in a row. Last year, Mark, John Cena turns heel. You remember this. And John Cena says, this is my last year. Screw all of you. I'm going to get the title and ruin wrestling. And in the last couple of weeks before Mania, John Cena would come out and insult everyone, and the people refused to boo him because it's John Cena. He's been here for 25 years, and it's his last WrestleMania. And collectively, the fan base goes, we're not going to boo this man. He could kick a puppy, and we're going to say it had it coming. Like, we're just not going to do this. But the match last year between Cena and Cody was at least structured. Face Cody, heel Cena. The crowd inverted that because they were the crowd. But that was the structure. This match is ass backwards in every sense.
You good?
Yes. I'll explain more later, but go ahead. You look like I'm losing you. You keep glancing over to your sports gambling app.
No, I actually have Raw on tonight.
Ah, okay. I assume it stinks.
My sports gambling went south earlier. In my defense, I had a bonus bet of $1, thrown on a bunch of games staying under, doing the under, and one of them went over. At least one of them went over. And I gave up and started questioning my life decisions. Anyway, I heard you say, and I didn't interrupt you because I don't have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. That the crowd, that the fans, the marks, the nerds have all been salivating over Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton, and maybe it's just me, and I understand that I am old and in the way, but when I wasn't. I'm not, and I understand I'm not everybody. I'm just my show, and I'm going to tell you how I feel. I was not looking forward to this. I could care the fuck less. I am so over Randy Orton, have been for quite some time. I like Cody. I just wish he were more interesting matches. Him with John, with John Cena, who's like, I hate the fans now. and was was doing a breakup like every other man and woman I know with the fans. That was good shit, and I was into it. And I wish John Cena had. I wish John Cena had retired at that WrestleMania instead of doing the goodbye tour that he did. But that's a story for a different day.
Oh, but no, we neided the goodbye tour because that gave us, the last Cena and AJ match, which was tremendous.
Sure. I wish John Cena had put over Cody at WrestleMania. More on that when we talk about CM Punk and Roman Reigns. But
yeah, Cena put him over fine at SummerSlam.
Yeah, I mean, we got there eventually. They eventually put the title on the one guy from Beer Money too. So listen,
those are not comparable circumstances, but never mind.
The only thing that struck me about this match was they built up the punt as the most notorious thing in wrestling. In God knows how long. Oh my God, the punt will kill a guy. If he does the punt, it's all over. They're gonna have to stretcher. They're gonna have if he punts him, they're gonna the world's first interracial baby will die. It'll all be terrible. Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. And Randy Orton, who is the devil, punts poor Cody Rhodes, our hero.
Cody Rhodes after the match is over.
Well, let's stick with the punt because that's my point. The bad guy kicked the good guy jet up in the face, and the crowd cheered.
Yep.
There's only so much I can put on this company. Like when they have nobody in this company that can read a crowd. It's like everybody in the WWE is run by autistics. It's like like what are we doing here? And even if they were able to read a crowd, even if they were able to understand the psychology of the fans and try to actually, appease their customers, you would assume if the bad guy kicks the good guy dead up in the face, that people would boo this sort of thing. And we're such animals now that we're, that we're booing the kick in the face by a guy who, notorious home invader and a person who said that he had auditory hallucinations and that he was hurting people and beating women. And this is the guy everyone was like, yes, you're the guy.
I mean this in all sincerity. About the only thing Randy Orton could do to get heat right now is to punt Io Sky. Because everyone loves Io Sky.
Yeah, maybe.
But that's it.
I think it would split the crowd.
You're more likely to be correct than
I am. But bear in mind, when I say if this guy wants to get booed, he has to do things they actually won't let him do because of network standards and practices.
Yeah. This really is and I don't mean this in the literal sense, obviously. This is a bloodless company. Bloodless, gutless, bland. I think when Harry and I were talking, I might have sent this to you too. I said this product has become vanilla ice cream. It's appealing across the board and absolutely bland. Yeah, and you can't even blame it on PG or whatever. It doesn't matter what they do. It's become so widely appealing, like a lot of other things. It has absolutely no personality anymore. So that's night one of WrestleMania. I think they said in a 4-hour broadcast, it was an hour and a half of wrestling. You can time this out. The times are all listed. Officially, it's 129 minutes of wrestling on a 4-hour broadcast and 118 minutes of commercials. Yep. They might as well have been trying to sell me a timeshare. Night two. Much. Night two. Significant. So night one is one of the worst single nights of WrestleMania action ever. Since they went to the 2-night format, we have to separate the days. But whatever you think the worst WrestleMania is, single event, this one is in that conversation, hands down. It is awful. It is nigh unwatchable if you actually like professional wrestling. Which I don't anymore. I like my kids and I like jingling keys mania. So I drank some beer. I wondered when Jackie was coming. Wouldn't be to the next night. I ate pizza. I heckled the TV with my kids. Occasionally I heard my girlfriend caterwauling in the next room on TikTok Live. That's literally my review of WrestleMania Night 1. WrestleMania Night 2, much more interesting to me.
This one is. Here's the thing. This night 2 is acceptable on balance. There's a theory floating around that the company tanked night 1 to make night 2 look better, just by comparison. And here's the thing.
Well, it works well for NBA teams, and I don't know why it wouldn't work well here.
It actually did work for some of the fans who are like, boy, night 2 was an all-timer. No, it's not. Night 2 is fine. Night 2 is good.
I'm glad everyone understands entertainment psychology. Anywho, night 2 begins with Brock Lesnar and Obafemi. It was the one match of the night that I was really looking forward to. I love Brock Lesnar. Always have loved Brock Lesnar. He's been one of my favorite wrestlers for years now. For those of you that know me, other favorite wrestlers include Goldberg and the Ultimate Warrior. Go fuck yourselves. So
you see, at least one of those guys can work, Brock.
But I love, I love big meaty men slapping meat. I like Obafemi. I got the T-shirt and everything. I like Obafemi. I actually am interested to see. If I have to lose a Brock Lesnar, I'm glad I got an Obafemi. We'll see what he does. I mean, it's not like Brock Lesnar was ever really great on the mic, so neither is Obafemi. So it's not like we lost anything there. Obafemi's a big meaty man slapping meat. He looks good, sounds good. He's got a fun walk, which we were all, my kids and I all just up and strutting.
Yeah, it's fun. Dum.
So
the
I
crowd's
was really
into it. His entrances are great.
So it's two big old hosses. I understand I'm not going to get a Mid-South here, but I was hoping that they would go a while and they would wreck the scenery and flip the ring over and punch a child. I didn't get any of that. This was really, really short.
Less than 5 minutes, 4:46 officially.
So since we're jumping into this, Obafemi versus Brock Lesnar, brought to you by Jack Links. If you like big meaty men slapping meat, you'll love Jack Links beef jerky. I was hoping if Brock Lesnar's going to put over Obafemi, which is what I wanted. I was, I made the joke before about just being dead inside, which is why I didn't respond the way I did to this. My daughter, not knowing that, did it on my behalf, so that was fun to watch her cry. But I knew going into this that the right call to make was put over Obafemi. Now, the word had it that Brock Lesnar was retiring at SummerSlam in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And that he didn't want, and that the rumor was him and Paul Heyman were advocating that he not lose until he goes out on his back. I don't know who knew backstage that this was going to be it for Brock Lesnar. I had saw something today on TikTok that part of the reason why A, the match was short, B, he retired in the ring, was physically he can't go anymore. That a longer match of high intensity, he's risking serious injury yet again due to his diverticulitis and what's going on with his gut, and it just wasn't worth the possibility of really hurting himself. And nobody wants a dead wrestler. So if any of that is true, and even just a little bit's true, I'm fine with it. It's just, as a fan of the guy and watching him wrestle, I'm a little disappointed. As a fan of watching guys that size with those looks go for long matches and beat the piss out of each other, a little disappointed. But I'm not a monster, and I would prefer the guy live to see his grandchildren get born, not die in the middle of the ring because I needed him powerbombed more times. Your thoughts?
Dude, Brock's almost 50. Mm-hmm. He's 48 years old. I think this match was originally supposed to go a little bit longer than this, is my hunch. Because you see Brock afterwards, when he starts taking off his gloves, Paul Heyman gets up and gets in the ring. He seems a little surprised. And if you don't know wrestling, this is inside baseball crap. But Brock looks at Paul and does this. And if you know wrestling, this is the injury sign. This is something's wrong. Something occasional. And that's one of the things that they very rarely screw around with when it comes from a wrestler. It used to be that this was what referees did when someone was hurt. They'd look towards the back where some agent is watching, where a producer, somebody's back there. And if the referee throws up the X, someone's hurt. No BS. Someone's hurt. People realized that the fans were hip to that. So occasionally that gets played with now. Very rarely, but occasionally. I mean, and it's not just Hurt. Like famously, for this terrible match between Sting and Jeff Hardy from TNA, where Jeff Hardy shows up too high to work. You can see the ref when he sees Jeff Hardy throw that up. Then Eric Bischoff comes out and tells Sting, just finish, pin him, and be done. And the fans are pissed, but I mean, it's a whole thing. But I've never seen that thrown up by a wrestler when it's not legit. Like if a wrestler gives that sign to somebody, to either the ref or somebody else, like they don't screw around with that. So something now that doesn't mean Brock is like blew out a knee or anything like that, but just I'm done. Something's wrong. And yeah, it seems like it caught a lot of people by surprise. It seems like I mean, if the WWE knew this was Brock's last match, you think they wouldn't have said something? Like, come on, they would have milked the crap out of that. But if Brock is, ready to be done, God bless him.
He was. It would be funny because Brock has so much cachet. He is so powerful. They pay him so much money. If he knew going in, they had intended to keep him until SummerSlam, and it was Brock, we need you. Brock, we love you. Brock, we got to have you. And him going, no, 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 no. And they're going, and they're not taking no for an answer. And he says, fine, I won't. I'll stay. Then went out there and retired anyway. Fuck you people. Because that's a thing Brock Lesnar would do. And if that is in fact what happened, he is now more my hero than ever before.
Indeed. Look, Brock.
You can't fire me. I quit.
Yeah. Like, oh, you wanted me to fire? You wanted to fire me in 6 months? No, I'm out now. Yeah. I don't want to do this anymore.
It's not a goddamn thing you people can do about it. Suck my big Brock Lesnar dick.
Yeah. Look, Brock was one of the most unique wrestlers that's ever been in the company. I appreciated his turn into MMA. I'm glad he came back for his second career trip through the world of wrestling. It gave us some really good stuff. He made a guy on his way out like you're supposed to do, and seeing Brock actually get emotional when he was taking his gear off was a thing. Like, Brock's not usually that guy,
Brock's a human being.
Well, I know that, but when I say he's not that guy, I don't mean he has no feelings. Mm-hmm. I mean, even if you've watched interviews with him and deep behind the scenes stuff, that level of emotion is a thing that he tends to be a bit more reserved about.
Well, that's the thing. Everyone knows if you've ever listened to this podcast before, knows I'm a professional therapist. I'm going to put my therapist hat on. And I don't mean to diagnose him in absentia. That's not what I'm doing. But if I'm right, and I could be wrong, but my take on Brock Lesnar is the fact that he's so buttoned up and he's so reserved and doesn't always have the language of feelings that he broke. And I don't mean snapped, like he had a mental breakdown. I mean, sometimes you just have a well up of emotions and you no longer have the dam that you normally do to hold it back. I've had that happen to me myself, and I tend to wear my emotions on my sleeve, but I also can be, because I have to be, very reserved and very buttoned up. As a professional, as a father, as a podcast host, I can't yell, I hate you fucking people, die, all of you die. I just can't do it.
I mean, you could.
I shouldn't. So on the occasion that I can't hold it back anymore and I have some unprocessed stuff that just leaks out, it happens. And, if you're Brock Lesnar and you've nearly died, you've been the UFC champion, you've been the WWE's cash cow, not once, but twice for over the last 26 years or so.
3 times, technically, because he did leave for a while after he leaves for the wrestling, for MMA, and with his dispute with the WWE. He comes back after being UFC champion. He has a bit of a run. He leaves again. He comes back. His return is like the cowboy Viking.
I'm assuming that's your people.
Yes, that's my mom. And apparently also there's morons who don't know this. MMA fighters leave their gloves in the cage when they retire. Wrestlers leave their shoes. So Brock did both. But it's a long-standing tradition in wrestling that when you retire, you leave your wrestling shoes on the mat.
And like, look, Brock Lesnar, yes, he got paid an exorbitant amount of money, worked, a lot less days than the average Joe Hammernager, but he also brought in a lot of tickets.
Yeah,
He-
dude,
he-
Brock was a draw in an
Yeah.
era when that's not really a thing.
Yeah, I was going to say he's probably the last legitimate superstar in pro wrestling, or one of the last. But if you're Brock Lesnar, though, and you've come back from death, you've won multiple titles, you've been told you're a god among men, and if you're in that ring and you're feeling a little less than, and you lost, and God only knows what else, you probably, I'm not surprised he had a break in the ring, and I don't begrudge him that. Not today, not any day. Am I gonna criticize him for having an emotional breakdown in the middle of a ring on his way out the door?
Yeah, I note it because it was so different from his normal presentation, not to be critical of him. Like, that's fine, man. And, I appreciate that he got some love on his way out. Because
I have to say that the pop-up powerbomb that Obafemi hit him with was fucking beautiful.
Oh, dude, Oba's great. Like, I'm again, this is the other thing that Brock did. Like, he made the guy on his way out.
Yep.
And bless you, that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, and he didn't sandbag him. He didn't do a Shawn Michaels where he threw himself hither and yon. He wasn't a sack of potatoes where he makes the guy look awful. Brock, for all of his faults, and there are many, was a consummate professional in that ring. Obafemi should have kissed him on the lips when it was over, because it was absolutely, and I'm being somewhat serious when I say that. Other than just being a professional, what reason did Brock Lesnar have to give that guy the best 5 minutes he could?
Yeah,
and he did. Oba looked good too, and I'm excited to see Oba versus Roman. I'm excited to see Oba be in the main event. I would like to see Oba. We haven't had. I think it's Kofi, The Rock. There haven't been too many Black World Champions. I mean, there might have been more often than not since we've gone to 2 belts, but during the 1 belt era, it was only The Rock.
Big E was.
Big E, yeah.
Unfortunately,
2 out of the 3 New Day, huh?
Not Xavier Woods, because he sucks. I'm kidding. Yeah, I think you're right. Like, so, there's a few others, but it's also a bit of a weird thing that, like, how, because the line for a long time was, well, people in the office don't like black people, and for some people in the office that may have been true.
Yeah, but he's not black; he's Nigerian. I'm doing the eyes thing, but I know people who think that way.
Yeah, because people are stupid. But yeah, Oba's got a good shot at it. And look, part of the other, as a minor note, like, part of the issue there is how many, like, name me 5 black wrestlers who should have been champion who weren't.
Bad News Brown.
Come on, not in that era.
Well, okay, if they were
if
better,
comes along genuinely during the Attitude Era, maybe you can get him a
short reign. Like,
if I say Ahmed Johnson, you will immediately point out that he sucked as a wrestler, and he did, and he was injury prone. So,
hang on,
on looks alone, yes.
Hang on. Ahmed Johnson's problem was the injury proneness, not that he wasn't very good. If he had been physically reliable, even without being great, he could have had a run. He could have had a brief run with the belt.
So Ronnie in with an interesting one. Ron Killings. The time to have done that was to have Cena put him over, but cowards run that company. But that would have been the time.
Well, if not then when he was doing the Confederate uniform bit.
Wasn't
like that version of R-Truth. No, Mark.
Sorry, I don't have all 80,000 years of fucking wrestling memorized.
No, that was a while ago. Was
Okay.
Little Jimmy and the Confederate.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, Ron Killings wouldn't have been bad.
There was a time when you could have done him with.
He could have had a brief run, yes.
Well, you had Booker.
Booker was world heavyweight champion. That's true.
But King
Booker.
Yeah, King Booker was fabulous. King
I'm
Booker
not
was
complaining.
damn near perfect.
I'm saying who should have been that wasn't.
Booker was.
Right. Well, I was thinking there weren't too many black champions. I think Rock was like a big deal when it happened to him. But then
The
in
way
short order,
people
we're going to get Booker, and it's even better.
the way people get around this, and Biggie was WWE champion, Ronnie. People forget it, but he was. He had a brief run with the belt.
Yeah.
Point there, like people add to this complaint by going, okay, not the world heavyweight title, because that's the loser's title. The real linear WWE title, that's the one that very few black people have had. And then you actually go through it and like, no, it's more than you might think. And then they go, well, okay, but when was the last? Recently, it turned into, when was the last time you had black wrestlers on a pay-per-view winning? Like, that's how stupid we've gotten with this criticism.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like who was around in the Attitude Era, and like who are you going to put the title on? Devon Dudley. Good old Reverend Devon.
Mark Henry was world heavyweight champion.
Yeah, Mark Henry. Yeah,
he was. Like, not just should have. Shelton. Ronnie throwing out Shelton Benjamin. I don't think Shelton.
Not with what they gave him in that company. No.
I like Shelton, but I don't think he ever was going to touch main event. And then they released the last really good black wrestler that they had in NXT, because they had Swerve. They had Swerve Strickland, and they let him go. And now he's killing it in AEW.
You know, it's a shame Velveteen Dream turned out to be a sex pest. He'd have been fun.
Yes, he would have been. Yeah, Velveteen would have been one of them, but, he turned out to be who he was. So anyway.
Let's move on. Anyway, all in all, I wish it had been longer, and I wish it had been a little bit taller. But still, for what we got, for the reasons we got it, I'm perfectly happy with Brock Lesnar and Oba Femi. So let's go to the car crash match.
What it is, 2.5 stars. Maybe 3 if you're...
The Intercontinental Title Ladder match brought to you by State Farm. We are farmers. Because after this,
you're a different company.
You're definitely filing a claim. This nonsense was Penta, Bouncy, who is my daughter's favorite wrestler.
Javon Evans is legitimately awesome.
Dragon Lee, JD McDonough, Rusev. You're nothing but the buzzing of flies to him. And Rey Mysterio's old ass.
Dude, Rey still doing what he's doing at his age is a miracle.
So, look, I like ladder matches. I like guys falling on their head off of ladder matches. They did a lot of that. My only problem, this is really I'm going to let you give your thoughts on this, but I got to get this out uninterrupted, because this is really my biggest problem with matches like this. The erector set building has got to stop. We are now lampshading stunts to the point where it breaks all credulity. They set things up. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. They've been doing this for 20 years now, because it was happening in the tables, ladders, and chairs match.
Did this.
Yeah, and that's my point. They were doing it back then, and it was ridiculous then, but it was new then. It isn't anymore. Every fucking year that we have a ladder match, they do this, where they have to build elaborate erector sets for people to go through. Like, it's not a movie. And then the other thing that always annoys me about these is the ladder is clearly not underneath the title. It's clearly far enough away, and these fucking idiots are just, as they try to reach for it from 5 feet a fucking way. Like, I know I'm comparing apples to oranges here. I am comparing the New York Yankees to the Mississippi Mudhens, but when Shawn and Razor had their ladder match, everything made sense, including what they did with the ladder. Shit stopped making sense with these ladder matches a while ago, and I'm calling it out now because it happens in every fucking match, and it needs to stop. There needs to be logic in these matches, or it literally is just a stunt show. And I can take that, but I'm not taking the rest of this seriously. I like Penta. Penta's fun. I'm glad he won the match, because I like to see Penta keep winning. And outside of that, I have nothing else to say about this car crash.
A couple of things. One, they didn't show anyone's entrances for this apart from Penta's. We got commercial breaks through all of them. Dragon Lee, because wrestlers have to pay for their own gear, splurged and got some big ass wings that were quasi controllable, and nobody saw it. Crying shame. Somebody should have asked Penta, Ray, and Dragon Lee all wore the same color scheme. That was a mistake. Like they're all red and black.
It's like when all wrestlers wear black and you can't tell who's who.
Yeah, like we needed a little more differentiation there, guys.
Mm.
Javon Evans is great. They kind of structured this like maybe Javon was going to win. Like he might have got the biggest pop when he hit Rusev with that cutter.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, Rusev.
It looked like it killed them both, by the way.
Rusev, one of the dumbest human beings in the world in kayfabe, because he just had to like turn into and jump into that cutter to get Javon to reach him.
Yeah, my kids and I were all laughing at that because Rusev was like, "Oh no!" and like dove into Javon Evans.
Yeah, it was a bit of a thing. Penta and JD McDonough with the destroyer on the ladder.
Ugh.
It's a fine spot. They did it as safely as you could do it, but don't do that with JD McDonough. His head's so big, he might just hurt himself anyway.
Maybe stop doing fucking Canadian destroyers onto ladders.
Again, they actually weren't that high off the ground. That was fine. I've seen much worse versions of that, including all the ones in current like era Ring of Honor where people get injured every time they try it. So please stop being stupid with it. There's ways to do it safely. Penta wins 4 stars, maybe 4.5, not quite 4.5, 4 around there seems about right. Fun car crash.
If you insist on doing erector sets, you must do the stunt immediately thereafter. Setting up an erector set at 5 minutes into the match, only to be Chekhov gunned 20 minutes later, is ass retarded.
I do not disagree with that at all, for the record.
Okay.
Like your general complaint there, I completely agree with.
All right. Sami Zayn versus Trick Williams, brought to you by Nike. Just do it, even if it ruins your life. We refer to this as
Trick, Mark.
Whoop that. Oh yes, my favorite thing about this was Little Yachty. Oh my god, I wouldn't
hate
stop.
that guy.
So there were 2 things about this match. We referred to this in my house as Free Palestine versus Little Yachty. That's how my kids know Sami Zayn. They know him as the Free Palestine guy.
Sure.
Every 5 seconds I kept yelling out something about Little Yachty. I think when he took a bump, I was like, "Oh no, not Little Yachty." That was about the only thing I remember. The Trick Williams and Obafemi, I could see being WWE champion and being the face of the company in the next little bit. Like once Roman finally decides to go home and we're done with the Samoans for a while, I would like to see Obafemi and Trick Williams carry the belt, kind of like John Cena and Batista. The both of them look like champions and figureheads.
The problem with this match, one, it's only 7 minutes. These 2 could have done something kind of cool.
Oh,
instead,
hang on. My other joke about this was he came out with the train so long, I thought this was the world's largest gay wedding.
It's the kind of train you usually only see at a Marine Corps base when they
I honestly thought Trick Williams was being married to Lil Yachty. And interesting that Lil Yachty is the boy in that relationship. Yes.
That's not interesting.
Keep blinking at me.
Not interesting.
Okay.
Look,
I'm done with jokes now.
Look, Sami Zayn he's been leaning heel for a bit now. Because he's been the white meat babyface, and because he kind of stagnated and people like Trick and they paired them together, the crowd kind of turned on Sami. So they've been teasing this full-on double turn for a while that we're sort of gone through, but haven't really committed to yet. Sami had a real dark period where he got his title shot at the Rumble with Drew, but he can't beat Drew McIntyre because Drew's a main eventer and Sami Zayn is Sami Zayn. And Drew beat the piss out of him in short order. And then Sami got all befuddled and was having breakdowns and yelling at people and but Randy, how could you do that to Cody? Randy's like, because I needed to win. Cody's still my friend. And Cody, you capitalized on that thing that didn't have anything to do with you, but cost the other guy the match. How can you sleep at night? And Cody looks at Sami and goes, because I'm an adult, you moron. And then Sami gets all, I'm conflicted because I want to be a good guy and do things. And then Aleister Black shows up and makes fun of him. And then Trick Williams shows up and is like, I've got an over chant and an over song, and I don't need anything else. I don't actually have to know how to wrestle. People chant at me. This is all I need. And Sammy's been like, no, you need to actually know how to do this. And I've been here for a while. And Trick goes, yeah, you've been here for a while and you've accomplished nothing. Nothing. And in short order, I, Trick Willie, will ascend the WWE universe. And you, gingerbread homeless man, Sami Zayn, whose breath still smells like 42 pounds of bounce that ass, is going to be, actual line he said to Sami Zayn, by the way, is still going to be where you are right now, because that's all you are and that's all you'll ever be. People like you don't win titles from people like me. And Sammy then kicked a guy in a gingerbread costume and go home SmackDown. They've been calling Sami Zayn Gingerbread Man because he's got red hair, so haha. So on the go home show, Trick brings out a guy in a gingerbread costume, the gingerbread man from Shrek, and Sammy kicked it in the head, because Sammy's a heel now and kicks all things that are fun. And Trick, look, I'm fine with Trick. I don't care much for him, but he's over, and that's really the most important thing. The U.S. title has been kind of what's carried SmackDown to watchability for the last several months, between Ilya Dragunov, Carmelo Hayes, and a few of the other guys in that circle. What Trick will do with it, who knows? Probably nothing.
All right. Finn Balor versus Dominic Mysterio in a street fight. Brought to you by Hot Topic. Eyeliner, daddy issues, and weapons included. I like Dominic Mysterio. He is definitely the son of Eddie Guerrero.
In kayfabe only, but yeah, dude,
no,
he does, man. He looks a little like him. He moves like him for sure. Like watching him move, watch early Eddie Guerrero, you can see it. It's
Dominic
crazy.
doing the King of the Luchadors thing is fun. I like Finn Balor. I've been waiting for years since he was in NXT for him to do the big demon entrance at WrestleMania.
And then you got it a few years ago, and you were just so disappointed that it was him on a podium then dropping down that you were just like, I never want to see this again.
Well, I forgot about that, along with all the people and things that have hurt me in my life. And so this is...
You forgot? I remember this vividly because you had said for years, 1, Finn Balor is the next John Cena. 2, I just want to see
hang on. I'm watching Raw. Jacob Fatu is coming out to interrupt a Roman Reigns promo.
Oh, man, don't take Jacob Fatu away from me on Fridays. Fridays are bad enough as they are. I need Fatu there. Or someone, if you're going to take Jacob Fatu from me, give me back Gunther. Give me something to care about.
Okay. Well, he is currently in his best Christmas dreads, currently approaching the ring to confront, and I'm going to quote CM Punk here, Roman Reigns and his young boys.
I sincerely hope Fatu beats the piss out of him, because Jacob Fatu is awesome.
Yes, he is.
Anyway, so yeah, I remember this because you were like, boy, Finn Balor's the next John Cena. Didn't happen. And then you're like, man, all I want to see is the demon entrance at WrestleMania. And then I remember when you got it, and it was the most underwhelming thing ever. You just like wanted to surrender to the cancer at that point.
That's still true. Listen,
you're so disappointed. You're just like, I never want to see this again.
Well, I had forgotten that, and I saw it come out, and I turned it up. I only turn up the volume 2 other times, when Brock Lesnar comes out and when CM Punk comes out, mostly on that last one because I like Living Color. Anyway, but I turned up the volume for the demon entrance, and my daughter, she was just like, I could see why you like that so much. That was really cool. My son was like, what the fuck was so special about that? He is more your son than mine.
There have been great Finn Balor demon entrances. This was just ho-hum.
Here's the thing. Remember how I said everyone gets about halfway down the entrance and then realizes it's too fucking long?
Oh, yeah.
And Finn Balor's starting to crawl, and then you see the light flick up
behind his eyes like, oh, this isn't going to work.
Yeah, like, this made more sense when I was doing it at the fucking training center in Orlando. This doesn't make sense at the Raiders Stadium.
Yeah.
So he got up and just started walking. But for the little bit that I got to see it, it looked cool. He looked cool. I like Finn Balor. I like the Demon. They had a great match. Probably top 5 match for me of the night. Dominic Mysterio and Finn Balor really know how to work together.
Mark, there's like 6 matches on this card. It being a top 5 match of the night is not a compliment.
I mean, of the entirety of WrestleMania.
Still.
whatever. It's a dumb thing for you to fight with me over. Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio, one of the best matches of the night. These two guys really know how to work together, and this is the only one that had an interesting story to me. That felt like these two guys were trying to kill each other to the best of their ability and what you're allowed to do in WWE. So, like in a company where you're allowed to actually take some chances and do some stuff, like had you done the same exact feud in AEW, this would have been much cooler. I don't think it would have gone the Kenny Omega, John Moxley route, but it still would have been cool looking. These two guys would have really tried to murder each other, and they did the best they could here. So I like this. It's one of the few things of the night that I'm not going to shit on.
It's fine. This was a pretty solid 3-ish star match, maybe 3.5 if you're feeling generous. They made use of the weaponry. Like you said, they actually kind of sold that we kind of really don't like each other and want to kill each other. It was interesting that, of course, no one from Judgment Day came down to help Dom after he showed up to help Liv. But JD McDonough was dead after the ladder match, and the women couldn't get involved in this because we don't like male on female violence because we're a pansy-ass company. So, yeah, again, good enough overall match. Nothing super special, but nothing. I'm with you. Like, I'm not going to complain about any of it. It was fine.
All right. Let's move on to Rhea Ripley versus Jade Cargill, brought to you by Minute Maid. Strong, powerful, and somehow still part of a balanced breakfast. I like Jade Cargill. She looks better than she wrestles. Rhea Ripley used to be pretty. She's absolutely made herself look like a monster with all the piercings and everything and the tattoos. She's just awful. She's also thinned out a lot, so whatever musculature she used to have is now gone.
Hang on. You're not the only one who noticed that. People have asked her about it, and she had to. Carrying all that extra muscle mass was legitimately ruining her back.
Well, then I'm glad she lost it. And I'm just noticing what I observed. If she did it for health reasons, I'm not taking that away from her.
Yeah.
I'm, again, not a monster.
No. Like that's explanatory because other people have noticed that too. Like, hey, wait a minute, didn't you used to be like? And it's like, yeah, but I kind of want to have a functional back in 5 years. So losing, 10 pounds of muscle makes my back not hurt anymore, and I prefer my quality of life to not be what Mick Foley has.
Yeah, which I'm fine with. But now all you've got left is a reject from Hot Topic look, as opposed to somebody who looked scary, somebody who looked intimidating. Rhea Ripley has lost all of that. I don't find her to be as menacing as she used to be.
I genuinely think it's more about the costuming than the musculature at this point.
Well, granted, she's still bigger than half the girls on the roster. I mean, when a good percentage of the roster is about Liv Morgan sized, you don't have to be fucking China to be intimidating. But still, she used to stand out a bit more.
That's true.
Jade Cargill still green as grass. What did they go? Jim Cornette used to say green as goose shit. Like, she has such great look and she has such great personality. I know she might not be your thing, but in general,
here's my problem with Jade. She is shockingly bad at this for how long she's been doing it. Like, this is a woman that AEW spent a lot of time with. Like, she was there for a while learning the ropes because she has a great look.
And again, before she set foot in a ring, I liked everything Jade Cargill did. So I think this is just an objective, subjective thing with you and I.
Well, hang on. Here's my gripes with her. She looks the part, 1,000,000%.
Glad we agree.
Then she has to talk, which she can't do. Then she has to wrestle, which she can't do.
Yeah.
Like, it's so weird because, like, if she never opened her mouth or had to do anything more than pump kick somebody on the outside, she'd be fine. But because she has to cut a promo, which she can't stress this enough, not very good at, has to wrestle on occasion, can't stress this enough, not very good at. She injured Michin and B-Fab in house shows. And, like, here's the other problem. Like, everyone gets confused. Like, oh, she didn't botch anything. You're missing the point. One, she did the worst one-winged angel I've ever seen, and I saw Kenny Omega do that after 50 minutes and partially suffering from blood loss. Terrible. Don't confuse variety of moves with knowing how to wrestle. Jade has no connective tissue to her matches. She does stuff and then stands around or yells until more stuff gets done. That's not the same thing.
It's amazing that's passable for good these days in pro wrestling. On the WWE at least.
And look, Jade largely got into wrestling as a vehicle for like trying to get famous and get more into acting. And hey, God bless her. Maybe she will. Maybe Marvel will decide to hire her for something because they still suck. But the problem is like she looks too good to not be around the title picture, but nothing about her actual work supports her presence in that title picture. And she winds up in this weird no man's land. Rhea got the win. It went 10 minutes. It was a 2.5 star match. It was perfectly average.
In our main event, we have Roman Reigns versus CM Punk, brought to you by Verizon, because no matter how many GTSs you hit, the signal always comes back to Roman. I want to talk about this for real for a moment. When Hogan and the Warrior had their face versus face match, that was one title, and it was a battle of who owns, kind of like Roman and The Undertaker years later, who owns this yard? Who is the big dog? Who's the big cheese? What are we fighting about? And it was face for, there was people who didn't like the Ultimate Warrior, people who didn't like Hogan. And so people cheered the one they liked and they booed the one they didn't like. And they went for almost an hour or however long it was. And,
that match did not go almost an hour.
Felt like an hour back when I was 12 or 13 years old, but I digress.
When you're used to the 5-minute Hogan match, I'm sure it felt like an eternity to see him go like 15, but
it went on for a while. But anyway, that was enough to carry that. Most of the time going into these, whether the bad guy wins or the good guy wins is immaterial. You at least have a bad guy, or you have a good guy, or you have two good guys that there's something besides the title or inherent within the title that they are fighting over. And I looked at this match against CM Punk versus Roman Reigns, and the only conclusion that made any degree of sense narratively to me was CM Punk winning. That's not because I'm a CM Punk fan necessarily, and I don't love everything CM Punk has said and done, but I'm more a fan than not. But at this point, CM Punk is the underdog going into this. Roman Reigns was the dragon. He was the big cheese. He was the monster. He's, what they say, 11 WrestleManias he's main evented in?
He is the most prolific WrestleMania main eventer ever by numbers. Which is saying something.
He is the company guy, and CM Punk is the ultimate outsider. But for all intents and purposes. CM Punk beating Roman Reigns had an inherent value, an inherent story to it. It was the little guy showing up. Just, granted, we did this with Daniel Bryan, but it was a little bit different then, and there was a whole other story going on at the time. But even if I'm saying the exact same thing, it's also been 12 years. It's okay. We can do it again. So CM Punk beating Roman Reigns is the only thing that makes sense. And for reasons I cannot explain, or I just fail to understand,
I can give you several.
They go with the low-hanging fruit and just put the belt back on Roman. And again, I'll accept that if you can give me not you, Robert. If the WWE could have given me a rational in-story explanation why Roman had to beat CM Punk and what that would have meant. But I got none of that in the build-up to this. And everyone's like, oh my God, this match was like the best WrestleMania match ever.
No, it's
and like
not.
it was okay. It was just okay. Like they were trying to do a Rock Austin. They're in the ballpark somewhere, but more the outfield. And then they don't do anything else. There's no Uso run-ins. There's nobody else running in.
Why should there have been?
They're not doing anything interesting with this match. And at the end of the day, the smaller, older, non-company guy gets beaten clean as a sheet in the middle of the ring by the bigger, stronger company guy.
And you say that like that doesn't contain inherent in-story logic?
Your witness.
Look, out of universe, you want to know why Roman won? There's a couple of very simple reasons.
Apparently to do a feud with Jacob Fatu for the title.
Because Roman's in the Street Fighter movie.
All right, I'll take that logic.
So Cody and Roman are in the Street Fighter movie. Who are the two big singles champions in WWE when that movie comes out?
Cody and Roman.
There we go. Further outside of in-universe logic, Punk's been the champion for a while. He's had an okay run with the belt. But if he beats Roman, then so what? Like, I shouldn't say so what like it doesn't mean anything. I mean, like, where do you go from there? Who's next for Punk if he beats Roman here?
Who's next for anybody? They always come up with someone.
I'm sure they can. That's not the point. The point is Punk's been champion, and he's actually...
When we asked this question many, many years ago. You know what the answer was? Mick Foley and Vince McMahon.
How'd that work out?
Well,
not really. Look,
hang on. Austin's run is Mick Foley, Kane, The Undertaker, Vince McMahon, and then The Rock as we get to WrestleMania 15.
Yeah, so it's a lot of stuff that survived based on the era it was in, not actually like being good. Come on, during that era, Austin loses the title in a triple threat match with Kane and The Undertaker when they both pin Austin.
Oh no, hang on, he loses it to Kane first in a first blood match, and then gets it back the next night.
Which of course Austin's
actual belt run is Austin's actual belt run is fucking terrible. The story that gets us from the day after WrestleMania to WrestleMania 15, it's fucking great, and I'll fight you all night long about that.
I'm not going to try and fight you about that. I'm making a general point that if this was like Punk's first title run, maybe you'd have more of an argument. But Punk's not the outsider. Punk's not the little guy. He's been here. He's in his second run. He's had multiple world titles. He has one of the longest world title runs, certainly of the modern era. He's the guy. He's one of the guys. This is never the fact that his perception persists as I'm the scrappy underdog. You may as well be making the argument that you're a Boston Red Sox fan circa 2000 to still say CM Punk is the underdog. He's not, and hasn't been for a long time. He presents himself that way, fine. He's not.
I also see him that way, but go on.
You can see him that way if you like. I'm not trying to say that you're wildly out of touch with reality. He's trying to present himself that way. I'm stating, take a step back, look at this objectively. He's the guy. He's one of the guys they have complete faith in at this point for a number of reasons. When that title that he's carrying right now struggled to find a home because people kept getting injured holding it, they gave it to him. And he held the fort down, and he was in good feuds, and he's in good matches, and he's been...
I will make this one case for you. He finally got to have his one-on-one WrestleMania match.
Okay.
And he absolutely deserved it.
Okay, if that's what we're talking about, he gets to one-on-one, close the show, WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. Yes. He got that. He deserved it. He's deserved it for a while, by the way, but he finally gets it. 1,000,000%. Closing the show doesn't mean you win. This is fake. It doesn't matter if he loses.
I think, Robert, what I'm not saying clearly enough is how many more times at a WrestleMania on the last night do we have to send the crowd home unhappy?
Do you think the crowd was unhappy?
Yeah. I think people went to that match fully expecting Roman Reigns to beat the big bad. Sorry, too. People expected the underdog CM Punk, the seeming underdog CM Punk, to beat the seeming big, powerful Roman Reigns. I absolutely think that was the expectation, and that was the Hogan must pose moment.
I think you're projecting. People love Roman. It's weird, but they do.
Okay.
Look,
I'm not arguing with you. I know people do. They don't present Roman Reigns, the character, as loved by the fans. They project him as a dick who bullies people.
Yeah, but didn't we just talk about how the fans cheered Randy Orton punting Cody Rhodes in the head after the match?
Fine. All wrestling fans like violence, violence to people and jerk off bullies. Let's talk about the match, unless you have anything further to say, because I'm not arguing with you anymore about it.
Okay, look, here's my thing about the ending of this.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Punk's had a pretty decent little run with the belt. It's time for him to pass it off. I'm not the biggest fan of them going back to Roman. I'm really not. Like I had my fill of Roman. I covered on SmackDown almost the entirety of his 4-year reign as Universal Champion. I have seen the good and the bad and the ugly that comes out of Roman Reigns as champion. So, like, is this something I'm personally yearning for? A return to Roman Reigns with the big belt? Not especially. But it was time for Punk to drop it. And Roman does pretty good business.
That's what I'm wondering, because this company is now so motivated more than ever before by, the perception of value, pumping the stock and all of that.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how much of the behind the scenes talk was, hey, as we go to Hogan, so shall we go to Roman, because we need this company to financially do better. So let's give it to the seemingly most popular guy. Again, Roman Reigns is the Hulk Hogan of the 2020s.
Yeah. And if the other kind of brilliant thing about Roman's presentation is it doesn't actually matter if the fans cheer him or boo him. They care.
Yeah, sure.
That
was the John Cena logic.
It really was, and you know what? It worked.
Mm-hmm.
Like the problems there were not that people didn't care about John Cena. It was there was no like supporting things to care about.
Sure.
But a whole other thing. The match is fine. Again, it's 34 minutes, which is kind of par for the course. I liked that there was no BS. It was just these two guys going at it. There was enough heat between them. Roman's whole thing being, you brought me into this company. I have surpassed you. But I've always hated you because you never appreciated what I did for you. Then the first time you got out of this company, you made my life infinitely more difficult than it ever needed to be. And by the way, it was difficult enough on its own, which in fairness is true.
Can we just stop there for a second? I don't like everything CM Punk has said and done, but I think a lot of what he said on Colt Cabana's podcast, I can take as read as, he's in the right. I think a lot of the grievances that CM Punk aired on Cabana's podcasts were right and true. And I think that guys like Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns in character, out of character, whining about the stuff that CM Punk said and did is sour grapes and utterly unnecessary. Because anybody else in CM Punk's shoes would have also complained and been as angry and quit the company under the circumstances of which he was had said at the time. His line about I was never going to, he said this in AEW and I actually used it when I quit the jail. I could never get well in the place. I was never going to get well in the place that made me sick in the first place. And I've said this for years about the WWE. It runs like a cult, especially when the Sex Pest was there. And that a lot of these guys were pushed further and asked more of than was really necessary unnecessarily, to the point where some of them got really, really sick and really, really injured. And life could have been a lot differently had anyone running that company.
And several of them really, really dead.
And well, I wasn't going to talk about that, but yes. And life could have been so much different had a human been running that company and not, a satanic sex pest. So I don't fault CM Punk for the Colt Cabana stuff. And the fact that two guys on that roster can't get over it. I like a lot of Seth Rollins stuff. I like some of Roman Reigns' stuff. But that's the fact they keep bringing that up really bugs the shit out of me.
Well, here's my thing about that, and I don't mind Roman the character bringing it up because if you follow the arc of Roman's character, it makes sense.
Great. Let's bring in John Moxley enough, and he can bitch and CM Punk about the same thing, and then we'll have the trifecta of the Shield.
Mox has his own issues with Punk that have nothing to do with
good.
anything said on that podcast.
Okay.
Dude, Mox's issue with Punk are like, you suck. And when I pitched you a Rocky 3 angle, you went, I've never seen Rocky.
Oof.
So how am I supposed to?
Well, I would much prefer that than another reference to the Colt Cabana podcast.
Well, again, it's just part of the tapestry of what's going on there. And
but what else did Punk do to hurt these people? He went on the podcast, bitched legitimately about the harsh treatment that he got, which I'm on his side with. And then he went to go proceed to lose in the UFC and embarrass himself twice, did a Drax comic, and eventually went to AEW where he said nothing about the WWE. Other than that line about I'm not going to get at it. He quit when he was legitimately sick and they were making him wrestle anyway. And he finally said, enough's enough. I don't want to die in this company for real. And he addressed it by saying, I'm never going to get better in the place that made me sick. I understand how you feel, CM Punk. And then never mentioned it again.
That's not true.
Not that I'm aware of. Everything else that happened in that company is him fighting with everybody else, which is where I start to lose Punk.
When he talked, like his feud with MJF featured numerous references to WWE.
Did it? Oh, okay. I don't remember that.
He told MJF at one point, if you think the grass is greener on the other side, go ahead. Main event night 1 of a buy one, get one half off presented by Valvoline, and I'll still be here where the real wrestlers are. Bear in mind, line aged like milk.
Let's move on.
But there's a bit of enough history. Again, they had these two, they sold the appropriate amount of heat. The story they told was just Punk's old. Mm-hmm. He's doing his best. He's scrappy. He's got the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. And
why didn't you take me when I was young? I like how some of these guys like Punk are all doing a last unicorn bit.
And yet Roman still got the fire and the firepower to be the best. And I'm okay with that. I am praying that we do not get. Look, I'll accept Jacob Fatu and Roman Reigns doing something.
Well, the other thing that happened tonight was Cody came out with Punk, and it was intimated that when Cody no longer looks like he went through a windshield, that those two are going to go at it.
Of course they are. Like they teased that on the Go Home SmackDown, kinda.
Oh yes, yeah. They were both in their ridiculous suits. Yeah, I saw that.
And man, poor Cody, because his cut might have been hard way. Like Randy gigged in their match. Cody's had a couple that made me go, because he's got like scar tissue around his eyebrows that has just never healed properly.
You should fucking see him tonight on Raw.
I'll look it up in a second when we're done, but there's a couple of times he's taking like belt shots or something that made me go, you just told the guy to lay it in a little bit and you know that's going to open up. Like Randy punted him in the head. Like, so yeah, Punk and Cody is not surprising to me. I will accept Fatu and Roman, provided one, you give me something on SmackDown to replace Jacob Fatu, because God, SmackDown sucks.
Okay, that's like the 5th time.
I know. Third, no other Samoans around Roman. None. I don't need Roman and Jay again. I don't need Roman and Jimmy in any capacity. I don't need Solo sticking his big fat head in here trying to be a serious character and his stupid B team of Islander rejects. I don't need it. Nobody needs it. Like, whatever we do with Roman, stay away from all of that crap. Fatu is acceptable if you put him over. Otherwise, no. Like, Fatu should just beat Roman clean at this point. But yeah, I mean, look, Punk we're not going to have for too much longer in the main event scene because his body's breaking down to the shock of no one. He's been doing this forever.
Yeah, well, sure. I think he got into wrestling, shortly before 2000? And he's my age?
Give or take. Like, he started on the indie scene as a teenager, basically.
Yeah, so yeah, doing it over 20 years, and like I said, he's. I think they said on the show tonight that he said that he was like 46, and I remember thinking to myself like, oh my god, me and Punk are almost the same age.
Yeah. He's not much older than me.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not going to get him in that spot much longer. And look, is Roman super established and didn't necessarily need the rub from Punk? Sure, but this is just about the title, not about who Punk puts over on his way out at the moment.
Okay. So overall, all night I've been joking about, this match is brought to you by, because the WWE is doing it, and if they're going to do it, I'm going to make fun of it. I really hate the 2-night format. I understand why they're doing it. I kind of have lost interest in WrestleMania as a weekend. Like this year, I didn't even watch any of the GCW stuff. I didn't watch.
No, you missed Josh Barnett shutting down Bloodsport.
Oh, that's it? This was the last one?
By all accounts, like kind of the way he phrased it was, it might come back at some point in the future, but for now, like it didn't quite it didn't quite achieve what he wanted to achieve with it artistically and like escalation wise. And his line, because he did an interview with Ariel Helwani about it today, and he said, I had a goal for it, I had an escalation for it, I had a vision for it, and this many years into it, we're not close to that. I'd rather be grateful it happened and stop it before it turns into something I never intended.
I loved Bloodsport when Pat introduced me to it about the time that it shifted from Matt Riddle to Josh Barnett. And as of last year, I told Harry last year, I was bored with it. Like, they're not getting anybody good. I'm seeing the same thing over and over and over again. This is very limited in what they can do with this, or what they did with it was very limited, however you look at it. So I'm not unhappy it's gone away. Even Effie's Big Gay Brunch last year, like I watched it and I was like, this was funnier when it was kind of like an over-sexual drag show. It stopped being that, and now it's just a bunch of garbage wrestlers who happen to be gay. I'm not into that either. So I didn't watch any of the Collective this year. I didn't watch the Hall.
Nothing on it was any good. Like, why would you?
Yeah, I didn't watch the Hall of Fame, even though I loved Demolition as a kid. They were my favorite tag team because even then I was into BDSM.
Oh, you should have watched it for Dennis Rodman's speech.
We'll talk later. But yeah, like everything that used to make, WrestleMania so much fun. The NXT Stand and Deliver, which in some cases was better than WrestleMania.
There were a few.
The Hall of Fame, and finally WrestleMania in one night, and it would start at 7 and end sometime next week. I kind of miss those days. I kind of miss, when I went to go see the one that was headlined by Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte, where that went on at 3:00 in the morning. I kind of miss that. I miss like one day, everybody on the card, big celebration. It on top of its presentation, making it look vanilla, the experience itself for me has, as you put it, aged like milk, to where I'm watching it. I'm going to end where I began. The experience of watching WrestleMania is habit, and I enjoy making fun of it with my kids and then talking about it with you, no matter how many times I rolled my eyes tonight. And I wish any of what I just said was the company made me love it again. That they failed across the board. There were moments. There's always the moments, Christian. But overall, this company lost me, and this failed to bring me back.
Yeah, there's a few things I want to touch on before we close up shop.
Sure.
So night one is abysmal. It's about a 3 out of 10 on the 411 scale. Bear in mind, I never do what I'm about to do, so please no one take this personally. The other reviewers on our site all have different opinions than me, which is fine. That's why there's more than one of us. Everybody has different things they like. I'm fine with that. I don't insult any of their opinions as a general rule, for solidarity with everyone else, professional courtesy, and my understanding that different strokes for different folks, and I can understand the subjectivity involved in this. But for night one of this WrestleMania, to get 7s out of 10 from them, I don't get what they saw. I'm going to phrase it that way. We did not have the same viewing experience at all. Because for me, night one is about a 3, which is on that legend, because zeros are absolute torture. 5 is not so good. It's like not so good, poor, bad. So this is like a 3. It's bad. Night one is bad, objectively bad for WrestleMania. There's one passable match. The main event is an ass backwards mess that's designed to have the evil heel fighting through a back injury the whole time. And everything about it's backwards. Everything about it is backwards. It makes no sense. Night one is bad. Night two is good. Night two is not great. This is not an all-timer. This is not 9s. This is good. It's acceptable. There's good stuff about it. It looks better because if you sat through night one, night two makes you feel okay about yourself as having devoted time to this. As for, if you don't mind, I'd like to talk briefly about a couple of things that happened here. One, we finally got the explanation for where Bianca Belair has been for the last year. Because she went down with a finger injury a while ago, and then the recovery time period for that came and went. And we all kind of went, what's going on here? Announced that Bianca Belair and Montez Ford are expecting their first child. She is pregnant. God bless them. Parenthood is the most important thing you can do with your life. Wish them nothing but the best. But she came out and announced that poor Montez Ford can't even be in the ring when his wife announces I'm pregnant. It's her and John Cena. You mentioned it briefly, but the Danhausen skit from night 2 is fine. Danhausen's been.
I laughed and cried, I hurled.
Danhausen, his debut was terrible. Because, newsflash, you should not debut a character like Danhausen like that on a major event. The crowd booed it when it happened. They were not happy. Because Danhausen is Danhausen. The next couple of nights when he showed up and did his shtick, it got over. Which is good, good for him. I'm not mad about the guy and not mad at him one bit. That's like, he should not have debuted that way, but again, that's a whole other thing. So him and the midget showing up and beating up Kit Wilson and the Miz, like, I'm fine with that. That's kind of what they're there for. Danhausen finally got his blimp. There was a blimp, Mark.
Good.
A blimp drone. But the one thing I wanted to talk about, there's two things. One, this was the second year in a row they went to Las Vegas. The diminishing returns are very, very real. They had 50,000 and change each night. That's down from 70,000 and change each night last year. So 20,000 less tickets sold, give or take. That's not good. They're also pricing these so that no one can afford. I'm going to say something nice about Vince McMahon. God help me. Vince McMahon understood that wrestling is a family event. And if the average...
Vince McMahon was to WWE what Walt Disney was to Disney.
In some respects, yes. Like, Vince's line was always, the average American household should be able to afford to come see a wrestling event. And somehow TKO has made Vince McMahon a babyface in absentia.
The sex pest, I would like to remind everybody.
I am not advocating for Vince in any way, shape, form, or fashion other than noting he understood the market, he understood the product he had, and somehow, you will appreciate this, Mark. I'm about to say something nice about Vince. The man had a sense of whimsy in his artistic sensibilities. Now tell me again why it's important I have that. Is it some like measurement of my humanity and my ability to interact with morality? Anyway. But people are not, it needs to be said, like, you're dealing with both events with less than half of your total broadcast time was actual wrestling. People are not happy about this. People are not happy about the number of ads. There were no backstage segments. There were no backstage interviews. There were no promos. There was no fun on WrestleMania. Danhausen got the closest. The rest of this was like, it's fine or very terrible. But the fun is gone. The soul is gone. And
I want to stop you there for 1 second. A couple of years ago, I was watching, I think it was SummerSlam, but I was watching it at my girlfriend's house because it was my night to be there, which means I didn't get to watch it with my kids. And it was the first time I realized that wrestling, the WWE at the very least, isn't good enough to keep my interest sans watching it with friends and family. Jackie brought her kids and the pet that she keeps to my house beginning to midway through the main event of last night because Jackie doesn't know how time works. And while her kids asked the same stupid question or made the same stupid statement 3 or 4 times in a row apiece, there was 3 of them, I would have gladly taken watching it with this group of Nimrods and my children versus watching it alone. But there was a time where I would have watched it alone and been very happy because the product was good enough that it didn't matter if I was with friends.
Yeah.
It's not that way anymore.
I don't disagree with you. I watch wrestling when I am paid to watch it at this point, for the most part. But to that end, people are not happy. This viewing experience is the home viewing experience for WrestleMania is piss poor. For a lot of reasons. So much so, and this is the thing I maybe want to talk about briefly, and we can kick this around before we go, but at the WrestleMania Night 2 post-event thing, where they have the people at the desk, they bring out winners, everybody gets to talk a little bit, that thing.
Yeah.
There's fans not too far behind them, like they're not on stage, but they're in front of the live fans. When Roman is out there talking a little bit, there is a very, very loud, very audible "fuck TKO" chant. Now, the same sentiment has been brewing in a lot of the MMA fandom for a while. Now, the difference is, this is actually the primary difference. The UFC has always been bland. The UFC has always presented itself the way it's presented itself. Everything is stripped down. Everything is bare bones. Everything is as boring and interchangeable as possible. So when TKO took over, the only thing that changed for the viewer at home was the following. One, they sold a lot more ad space. Every corner, every post of the octagon, everything around the top, every square inch of the canvas is all ad space now, which no one likes, but everyone kind of understands. And ticket prices went through the roof to the point where nosebleed sections for a Madison Square Garden card are like 5 figures, 4 to 5 figures for the nosebleeds. It's terrible. But that's the model that they transported to WWE when TKO was formed was, hey, if we started pricing these like MMA events, never minding the fact that these are 2 wildly different markets. MMA is not a family event. You don't grab the kids and say, let's go watch people get CTE. And hey, 3 drunk guys 4 rows in front of us are going to get into a brawl at some point. You don't bring your 5-year-old to that. You bring your 5-year-old to the wrestling show because the wrestling show is the circus, and we want the 5-year-old to be there and to have a great experience and to be a fan for life. So they started pricing people out. They're selling every bit of ad space. They're not giving you actual wrestling product. And when it gets so bad that the parent company is getting crap, you know you have a serious problem.
This is what I said at the beginning of the show, where the people attending are basically just window dressing, and that this is a giant marketing event. This is what you're getting at. We're ending right where we began. This is no longer about wrestling. This is no longer about entertainment. This is about creating an opportunity to sell ads and collect on television rights. That's what this has become.
And it doesn't help that ESPN is, dude, you know what? We both know what ESPN paid for WWE to be their exclusive non-pay-per-view provider, right?
Yep.
They're not getting a return on investment on that. Like,
Yeah, I'm sure Paramount's not getting a return on investment for the UFC either.
Paramount's spending $1.1 billion a year on the UFC. They are not getting $1.1 billion a year or more in Paramount Plus subscriptions. It's all about what they can sell ad space against. And
But
the
the
buyer's
thing about that
remorse
is
real.
they have to be factoring in that the shit's going to get cut up and put on social media. And so if it's going to get cut up and put on social media, then you'll get free advertising of whatever happens to be in the shot.
I assume something like that.
Like
Your social media
your social media impression numbers are kind of a big part of your ad sell. And yeah, it's not good. And whenever
we used to have problems with the UFC.
Nobody, shouldn't say nobody, but it was rare that you got into like, boy, Zuffa sucks. WWE's always kind of been self-owned. I know they went public, but they never had a corporate entity that was in charge of them the way they do now.
Yeah, no, the McMahon family were always majority share until the end.
Until they weren't. Yeah. But when your parent company is now getting heat from MMA fandom, which
is the most cyclical,
churn-based. I've said this about MMA before. I'll repeat it here because I think it's important to make this point as it relates to wrestling.
The UFC has been a poor steward of
MMA history, and they have been a poor steward of fan base. The life cycle of an MMA fan is 5 years on average. People come in, they enjoy it, they stick around for about 5 years, then the burnout hits, the fighters they like leave, and they decide they don't want to be here anymore, and they leave. There's a second wave of burnout. If you survive the first wave, there's a second wave of burnout around 8 years later. So 3 years after the 5-year mark. A lot of people start to fall off around then too. But so you get 5 years, you lose 70% of the fans that came in during the previous 5 years. You got 30%, they stick around, and then something happens. We get another 5-year cycle of fandom. But Mark, you used to host the MMA podcast that I now host. No one from that show still watches the sport. Like,
wow.
No, you might get Pat to watch a big fight now and then. You will watch very sparingly. I watch because I'm paid to at this point. But every 5 years, the vast majority of the MMA fan base cycles out and almost never comes back. I can't say never, but almost never returns. That's sort of how this goes, that churn cycle. It leads to a fan base that has no appreciation of history. You get someone in when they're 18, and by the time they're 30, by the time they're like 27, 28, they have left. The 18 to 35-year-old demographic, you get someone at some point, and then by the time they're 35 at the latest, they've dropped off the sport. Is kind of how that works. You just try to reappeal to the next younger generation. That's never been the case for professional wrestling. Professional wrestling is a family generational thing. Your parents watched it and showed it to you. And then you share it with your kids and your cousins. And that's how the fandom and the culture and the history and the appreciation of all that is built within pro wrestling. In MMA, I couldn't go to a current UFC event, talk with a fan about Pride events. They wouldn't know what I'm talking about. They'd accuse me of being woke.
Okay.
I'm not wrong, and you know what I mean.
Okay. I'm giving you the hook. Wrap it up.
The danger with what TKO is doing with professional wrestling is you're trying to turn it into some of what the UFC has been doing. The UFC model is sustainable through a long-term contract, a total monopoly, and not much else. WWE needs to be different from that for any number of reasons. And trying to turn it into that is not good. all you're doing now, all TKO is doing is wealth extraction. They're not building anything. They're not growing anything. It's just what is the maximum amount of dollars we can siphon off of this entity before everything goes tits up. And nothing is better for it.
So next year, WrestleMania will be in Saudi Arabia, where maybe
That's
they'll
not
sell...
a joke, people.
that wasn't a punchline. But I bring that up because to put a final point on Robert's long point, if you think all the complaining and kvetching and meandering and ruminating that we've been doing tonight was bad, wait till next year where they don't even sell tickets to the goddamn thing. It's just the Saudi kingdom and whoever they're giving tickets to. And those people will be pleased as punch, and they'll be exactly what the ghost of Alfred Hitchcock wants them to be. Cheering, enjoying, not really giving a shit what it is they're looking at, just happy to be there. And if this year was bland, next year will be water.
Hey, you remember when they first went to Saudi Arabia for that greatest Royal Rumble event?
Sure.
And the sheikhs who were paying for it said we'd like Yokozuna to be on the card? I'm not kidding. They asked for a dead man to be on the event.
Rich people tend to be obtuse.
That's assuming that, bear in mind, that's assuming that Saudi is still going to pay WWE for that next year, because the conflict in the Middle East is forcing a massive reassessment of financial considerations from everyone in there. And the Saudis are not excluded from that.
Yeah, I actually saw something about that today. But, well, folks, ending on geopolitics is the best way to end a podcast reviewing a wrestling show. So with that, that is our review of WrestleMania 42. Long. This Thursday.
We still have not equaled the amount of ad time spent across those 2 nights in our podcast length, by the way.
This Tuesday, we've got sessions. I will be taking the Boys Season 3 podcast and turning it into a Southern rock song, Southern metal song, that sort of thing. It's called That's What Men Do. So stay tuned for that. I will be going to Alabama this weekend to take my son to Guar for his birthday. So on Monday, instead of seeing a movie in theaters, we will instead do Apex, starring Charlize Theron, which is presently on Netflix. And then a week from Thursday, myself and Robert will have fun. We can have fun. It does happen. We'll be doing a triple feature of volcano natural disaster movies. Volcano,
well, 2 volcano and 1 other.
Yeah. Lava movies. How do you like that? Volcano.
When it's underground, it's magma.
Fucking hate you. Volcano. Case 3. Banned from the set you will be. Volcano, Dante's Peak, and The Core. And that will wrap up April here on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. Now, if you haven't heard enough Rob talking tonight, listen to him now do his plugs.
Yeah, I cover mixed martial arts and professional wrestling over at 411mania.com. WWE SmackDown on Fridays, which has been absolutely awful for the last 3 weeks. I mean, just terrible. Dude, the go home show for WrestleMania featured 4 matches across 3 hours. One of which was the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, won by Royce Keys, formerly known as Powerhouse Hobbs.
Saw that.
I gave that one I think 4, because I grade go-home shows on a curve. Because I know you're not going to do your best work on a go-home show for a big event. No one wants to get hurt. No one wants to risk it. I get it. Protect the assets. I genuinely do. Hence the sliding scale. Without that being a go-home show, if that had just been what SmackDown is every week, that's a 2. If that. It's terrible. So hopefully we can start to turn that around on Friday. I don't have much hope for that, but hopefully. I cover UFC events on Saturdays. There was the UFC was in Winnipeg on Saturday for Burns versus Malott. Check out my full review. This Saturday, they're back in the warehouse for Aljamain Sterling versus Yusuf Zalal. It's an okay card. If you want a full review and preview, over on the 411 Wrestling and Entertainment YouTube channel, I host the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast, where I talk about the wide, wacky, wonderful world of mixed martial arts. Go give that a listen if any of that strikes your fancy. And on Wednesday, for a proper Damn You Hollywood, Alexis Hana and I will be reviewing Lee Cronin's The Mummy.
Oh, I saw part of a Red Letter Media half in the bag for The Mummy. They didn't love it.
The reviews, I haven't seen a lot of reviews. I want to go in as blind as possible to this one, for a lot of reasons. But
you haven't seen it yet?
No, I'll see it tomorrow. If I can go on the cheap day, I do. But the sentiment I heard that I think gives me a little bit of hope personally, because I'm me. There's a long tradition of knockoff movies in the horror genre that find an audience. Like Piranha is a knockoff of Jaws. Critters is a knockoff of Gremlins. This is kind of a knockoff of The Evil Dead. And
yeah, that's what they were talking about on that podcast.
And as a person who enjoys The Evil Dead, I'm willing to take a flyer on this and hope that we get an entry into that category of loving knockoff homages that are certainly watchable and enjoyable. Because I could do with a mean-spirited, violent, gross exploration of things right about now. Why not?
All right.
Can't be worse than WrestleMania Night 1.
You done?
Next week you and I are talking Apex, so that'll be a good time. Come on back for that, everybody.
All right, for Robert Winfrey, I'm hot and sweaty. Be well, be safe, and behave.